Hello, everyone, and welcome. Is that supposed to be happening? We're back. It's a fabulous Tuesday. Are we small on your screens out there? It's been, what, 3 weeks since we streamed?
Yeah. It forgot how to make boxes.
I forgot how to even be on camera.
Oh my gosh, this is crazy. Hold on. What happened? I bet Jonathan was in the studio.
What up, Terrence?
Oh, yeah, that's what happened.
Can we get it? What is this, a stream for ants? Seems to be at least 2 times bigger.
Oh my gosh, look at this. What even is this? Look
I don't know,
this.
You're in a trap. It's like a
standard
alternate reality.
No shot available. Okay, hold on. You want to redo that intro,
What up, Rain? Rain saying small on the screen, big in our hearts. Yeah, we can redo it.
All right, we'll redo it.
What up, Ice Cobra? It's nice to meet you too, and Lil.
You met some people in Lille, huh?
It was really amazing. We'll be talking about the Pro Tour number 2 and the successes.
Look at this.
Or lack thereof.
Yeah, just keep talking. I'm going to mess with this here
zoom
for
in
a second.
Darth Brent is saying I'm getting the black lung watching this.
Man, that's weird.
I just got that reference. It took me a second.
Oh, now Jonathan sent me to the screensaver. All right.
Terrence's probably right. Something about the metric system being the issue here. Got used to that over in Europe.
Yeah, maybe. Could be that. Here comes Johnny. Look at this.
Since the road systems
Oh my gosh, he had it saved on a different profile. Oh my goodness. It's all over.
Can they hear us?
It's all over. See, now it's normal. You know what happened? There was obviously a test profile that was set and it wasn't set back. You know why? There's a lot of good reasons. But
yeah, who's getting whipped?
Because Jonathan is in all of his genius is very much like my wife. Extremely similar. And the end of the task is not resetting back to where it started. The end of the task is, I achieved what I was there to do. I'm out. Yeah. Like it's like she'll come in and be like, I need to do this, and there might be 16 different things that get strewn about in the process of finding X. Task is over once you found X.
Like, I'm looking for my keys.
The 16 things are gone.
So this notebook that's here maybe gets moved here. This gets moved here. Yeah. Oh, I found my keys. Those things stay exactly where
That's right. Yeah. And you know what? As a psychopath that I am, you know what I do? My breakfast isn't done until I've washed the plate and returned it to its clean status. Right back there on the shelf. That way, it's always there. Let's not redo the intro. Everybody, how is everybody going? How's everybody doing?
Everyone loved that intro.
Okay, yeah, we'll leave it.
Just roll on with it.
Well, it's authenticity is the new postmodernism.
Before we dive into anything related to Lil, how are you, man? You did the ideal thing.
I've been on vacation.
Yeah, what happened to you?
I have had a great past couple of weeks. It's been awesome. So good. I went to Bermuda. Not because I'm any kind of fancy person.
And didn't permanently get lost.
That's right. The triangle apparently isn't terribly real. It's pretty much just a normal thing to be there. No, but had friends who one friend got a job at an accounting firm in Bermuda, got an offer, like a headhunting offer. So probably was involved in some sort of strange shuffling of money for illicit clients. But I didn't ask questions, but I did take them up on the offer to visit while there, because how often do you get a chance to go visit a place like Bermuda, essentially with no lodging costs, no food costs?
Yeah. The current amount of times that's been offered to me is 0.
Yeah, 0. So
I just had my whole life. So odds are low.
I just had to get a flight over there and back, and that made it very affordable for us, and it was beautiful. Have one of the 6 out of 10 best beach in the world.
Okay, number 6.
Number 6, Horseshoe Bay, and I was there.
Do you know how many beaches are on the is it number 6 out of 10 or is it number 6 out of?
Well, technically, everything, every landmass has a beach. It's almost you know what I mean. So in terms of total beach line,
I feel like you can put that on a shirt. Every landmass has a beach. The infamous words of Stephen Muller.
It's real high up there in terms of all landmasses. But as far as known beaches, I don't know, what is there, probably thousands.
I feel like this is a total tangent for a second. I know we'll come back to the beach story. If we ever were to make a card game, how there's always flavor text on the bottom? Mm-hmm. I feel like quotes from the streams.
I think that would be funny.
Almost attributed to historical, Like you can picture some commander on the card, like Command and Conquer's flavor text being every landmass has a beach.
We'd be making the spoils before we knew it,
but every piece of flavor text has some stream reference point. Anyways,
it would be better than a lot of cards that have no flavor text, which I never have understood really.
Like what are they even doing if we're not telling
Just put it down there and have somebody think of something. So number 6 is this beach, and you know what was crazy? So Blake, he was the friend. He had connected with some local Bermudians, and by the way, the beautiful sentiment to understand. Local Bermudians don't care about the beach. Like, he's been there since he was 0 years old, and so it was the first time visiting the beach that entire summer was with us.
Isn't that crazy?
Because, like, you have tourists come in and you want to show them stuff, but when they're not there, you don't do the cool things in your own space. So I was just like, you don't even, and they're like, we like stay inside in the air conditioning. So that was crazy to me, but understandable in its own kind of weird way. On that beach at night with a bonfire in the ocean. Incredible. Being in the ocean in the middle of the night is insane.
Yeah. Especially with a bonfire.
Yeah, with a bonfire and like with a light fear of, sharks at any moment, where it's just like, I can't see anything.
Yeah.
Something could eat me here. So that was kind of fun.
Because there are sharks there.
Yeah, I think so, but they don't come in. It's like one every 20 years eats somebody or something. They're like, it's not a big deal. And then the main thing that you should know about Bermuda is their national dish is a fish sandwich with raisin bread.
Galactus was asking about how the fish sandwich tasted.
Yeah, so I tried 4 different variations of it, and it was fantastic, all of them.
And how's this fish prepared?
Some of them are like kind of lightly pan fried. Some of them are like a deeper fry. Some of them are grilled.
And
standard fish.
Their fish have to be good.
It's like the only thing that's actually cheap on the island.
Because it's everywhere.
Because you can just go get it. Otherwise, you got to boat it in, right? So it's actually reasonably affordable. There's local fishermen like on the side of the road constantly just like, what do you want?
You want some fish? Kind of like you see like watermelon stands here.
Exactly. Yeah, they have the cheap fish, the wahoo, which is like the cheap version, and then all the way up. They had billions of different types of fish. I mean, it's like every place was a different type of fish. But yeah, it's that and like coleslaw style mashup and then raisin bread. And it's like that sweet savory thing going on. It's just like really fantastic. So
what was the proverbial highlight of the trip?
I mean, I think Horseshoe Beach at night was pretty much it for sure. We had some great meals, but yeah, it was just we literally spent like, we would go out, we went kayaking one day. And it's just like emerald water, like this blue-green.
You can see through it?
Yeah.
I love that.
All the way down.
I love it. Yeah.
Unreal. All the beaches are public.
What was the temperature like?
Swampy. Like 85 and 100% humidity.
Humid?
Yeah.
Interesting.
So while you're out in it and you're wet and stuff, it's fine. But like if you're just walking, like we did a lot of walking from to and fro.
Immediately sweating?
You get really sweaty. Yeah, really sweaty. But enough about Bermuda. Tell me about France. I've been to France before.
Where'd you go in France?
I've been to Paris, of course. I went to Montpellier. I went to Marseille. In
American.
And then I think that was it. That was the second Europe trip we did.
What was your you went around Europe, right? So what was your take on France? I'm curious before I get into my take on France.
France was funny to me because like the first time I went, I was in like we were in full like dirtbag territory. So like we were like
backpacking.
Yeah, like sleeping on park benches, dirtbag stuff. So
I know what you're talking about. You have like a piece of bread.
Yeah,
and you're sleeping out on in front of the Eiffel Tower.
Get a baguette. Yeah, it was awesome. But we went to the cafes and they wanted nothing to do with us, which is totally understandable. One thing I will say is I definitely noticed the difference. I got on a train from Paris into Belgium, into Ghent, and it stopped a few places along the way, and it was very tidy, proper, etc. Nobody said anything. And then once we got into Belgium and we picked up like the 5 p.m. post-work crew, it was like boisterous.
Yeah.
I do remember that distinctly.
That's the
it was
Belgian
like a
people,
very
not
different
the
culture.
The French
was happening. But I loved France, man. Just on the whole, I felt like Paris was super safe. We were walking around at like 4 or 5 in the morning and saw nobody. We were the weirdest thing on the street for sure in Paris. And
you were the people that I'm like, I'm gonna go the other side of the street.
Definitely. It was beautiful. Everyone was actually super kind, especially in Montpellier, Marseille. I loved Marseille. It was so nice. Went down to the bodegas and got a bunch of wine, and they opened it for us, and you can have it on the street. It's So I was into it. I dug it, but I never did anything like adult in France. You know what I mean? Like I didn't go to restaurants. I didn't go to cultural things that weren't free. Like I walked by the Eiffel Tower. You know,
in the Louvre, though, right?
I went to the Louvre on the free day, which was Sunday, I think, at the time.
Did you like have your bag with you, or what'd you do with that?
Yeah, I think you could like check them at the front
like
or something. Yeah. What do you think about France? Lille's a totally different vibe because that's almost Belgium. You're like north.
Honestly, without even going into the tournament stuff, Lille was... So we went to Scotland first and then stopped at London on the way down to Lille. Took the Eurostar speedy train.
That was what goes under the ocean.
Yeah. Didn't even... you wouldn't even know. You're just like, hey, we're going into a tunnel now. Cool. And you hop out the other side in 20 or 30 minutes. But like, it was...
oh, here we go. Let's go. Covenant France.
No, I mean...
Never happening?
So my opinion of France is bleeding together with the tournament. And so there's some really interesting stuff that was going on. We're in Lille, and food-wise, it was like a huge shock. And not in like I'm not surprised by it 100%. And I'm not a very picky person. My wife is very picky, so she was with me.
Yeah, you've come out of your shell quite a bit.
Yeah. But like, here's an example of an interesting party experience at Pro Tour 2. Is that
Pro Tour 2.
So we got to Lille on like Thursday afternoon. And Thursday evening, they were having the players meeting, which they did at Pro Tour 1. It's really cool.
Essentially the banquet?
Yeah, there's like food, and there's a bunch of space for people to hang out and chat. And then a couple hours later, James does a Q&A. People are just hanging out. It's the same here as it was at Pro Tour New Jersey, which is like, it's an odd event. I love that they're doing it. It's really cool. Everyone's traveling in from out of town. It's like a cool place for people to gather. But it's before the tournament starts. And so you have a bunch of people who love Flesh and Blood, love these games, who've been preparing quite a bit for it.
A lot of nervousness.
In a room where they really can't talk about any of that. Mm-hmm. Because they don't want to talk about the deck that they're on, or why they're on it, or the matchups they're scared of, or any sweet tech that they have, or any of that kind of stuff. So it's like this weird tension in the room. It's not bad, but like you can just feel it. Versus if it was on... I'm not saying they should make this change, but if it was on Sunday evening, that's a very different vibe.
Totally.
At that point. So anyways, they do that, and then we, the wolf pack goes back to the hotel. We don't stay for the full event, so we can just chat, catch up, talk a little bit about life, talk about, at this point, so the format of the tournament was 3 rounds of draft, 4 rounds of constructed, twice.
Okay.
So we just wanted to kind of go over draft, thinking one last time before the next day. Everyone's kind of locked on their constructed.
So you just chatted.
Yeah, just hung out, had a drink, just chatted.
Was some wine or something? Did you do something French at all? Or
I had some Belgian beer.
That's close enough.
Because they're close to Belgium, so they import a lot of that.
That's close enough.
Yeah. But that was great. And then the food shock really came in. Came in the next day, which is the tournament, like the player registration piece that you have to be there for is at 9 a.m. So my plan was to leave our hotel at like 7:45, have breakfast somewhere, go to the thing at 9 a.m. Let's do this.
And you're expecting a charming breakfast, I imagine. A croissant and a cafe.
I had done a decent amount of research on like what was nearby. And the time zones are different when you're looking here. So I really wasn't vetting it completely. Mm-hmm. But the thing that was shocking is at 7:45, 8 a.m., I looked at all the things nearby that I had favorited that were things places that would have things I would want to eat, right?
Yeah. Like the overnight oats or the
acai with granola and oats and fruits and like some vegetables and that whole stuff.
La petite.
And none of them are open.
Okay.
Until at least 9 a.m. But a lot of them don't even open until 10 a.m.
It's that French work week, man.
Yeah. So at 8 a.m., I'm there, and it's like, there's nothing open except for like bakeries. So you go, and you're hoping, and then it's like, it's literally just sugar, carbs, and coffee.
Oh, yeah, of course.
And it's like, oh no. This is... And to be fair, the pastries were some of the best pastries I've ever had in my entire life. Delicious.
It'd be sad if it wasn't.
I haven't been drinking coffee until recently. I started drinking a little bit before the trip. Coffee was also excellent.
Mm-hmm. What kind of coffee did you get primarily?
Just like espresso or Americano.
Yeah.
Style.
Great. Were they in the little paper cups?
Uh-huh.
You shoot them and go, basically?
They actually, at the event, they had a couple little food places, kind of. Like one just had like pre-made sandwiches or whatever, but they also were doing coffee. And at some point I was like, hey, I'm going to order a coffee. And they're like, you want a small or a large? And I was like, give me a large. And it was like just a little cup, right? Because they're just giving you a shot with like a little bit of whatever.
Totally, yeah.
But the coffee was really good. But there was literally the whole weekend, there was nowhere you can go for breakfast that is anything that's not pastries.
That's fascinating.
And coffee before the event space opens.
Yeah.
So, or before the event is starting. So that was interesting.
So that's kind of a tough thing. The confluence of international event and convention center event timing is not lining up with what the surrounding restaurants are actually doing.
Yeah.
Huh. Well, and to be fair, most people are going to look for a pastry and a coffee for breakfast.
Yeah,
and a cigarette, of course, if you're French.
100%.
But if you're trying to be like, healthy, maybe more difficult. You could buy some apples at the grocery store or something, right?
And I should have. One of the biggest mistakes of my entire trip was not, when we were in Scotland, not stocking up on things that I could have made for breakfast. Because by then, it's like I was not I had done the research to find the places I was going to go to.
Yeah.
But by then, it was like, well, day one is already a problem. So then it's the question of like, well, do you, that night with the time that you have, do you try to go find somewhere
right
where you can get stuff that you actually want to eat, or like do you just roll with it?
Yeah, no, you go to a great restaurant for dinner, right?
Yeah, well, you definitely went to a restaurant. That's what you did. But I wasn't going to a grocery store on that night to solve my problem for Saturday. So Saturday comes around, you have the same problem all over again. And like literally towards the end of day one, I will talk about results in a minute, but I had an okay day. Day one, I finished 4 and 3.
I blame it on the carbs personally.
But like literally towards the end, I was like, man, I'm just feeling. At first, I was like, I didn't have a great day, and there's like the jet lag situation.
Yeah.
So like sleep is a little different, and I was like, man, I just feel like drained. Like I'm just like can't. And then it was the next day, it felt the same way. Even when the first part of the day was going pretty all right. And I was just like, why am I? And then I think the thing that sold me on it 100% was accurate was the two things. Saturday dinner, that was the first time I was able to get like fruits and vegetables.
Was you just like cream sauces and stuff before that?
Man, and like the first night we went to a place and it was like, specifically outside potatoes, there was no vegetables on the menu. It was crazy. It's beef, fancy beefs, and like there's no vegetables. It was insane. Anyways, so we having dinner Saturday night, and it was like an hour later, I felt way better.
Oh my god!
But most importantly, I ended up in Paris on Monday morning, had breakfast, and they had it was like half of an order of avocado toast with a salad that was delicious, and then half an order of like granola and acai and fruits and stuff. An hour later, I haven't felt that good in a long time.
Well, there you go.
Like for forever. Even after
that food be thy medicine, man.
Even after like a long week of an event and all the travel and stuff, it's like Monday, I should be tired. And like an hour later, I felt fantastic. Yeah. So I'll never make that mistake again. I'll also say, insane. So Pablo, who won Pro Tour 1, he top 8'd at this Pro Tour. So
he has to be the best in the world at this point, right?
After he made top 8, I think it was Dante walked up to him and he said, he's the best player in the world.
Yeah. Because you're talking about jet lag. That's what the Europeans come over to the States and still destroy.
That's what I was going to say. So you already have to have respect. He lost his first 2 rounds in Jersey and then won the tournament. But after experiencing an international tournament like this, the amount of respect I have, and there were a ton of Europeans made the top 8 of the first Pro Tour. Between the jet lag, the dietary, it's different. It's just totally different. Yeah. And I do think like my general eating habits are very good at this point, but the lack of bad stuff around meant that when I was just having like carbs specifically and like sugar in the first half of my day, it just doesn't happen. Yeah. Like The only sugars I'm getting are fruits at this point.
You definitely kept that out of the training regimen that you should have included. You should have been crushing croissants and testing fab every morning.
It was crazy. I do think it's actually super relevant, but I have an immense amount of respect for people traveling internationally and doing well at a tournament.
Yeah.
Because, like, we got there early enough that I was trying to normalize jet lag and all that kind of stuff, but it's tough. All the travel and getting used to the time zone and the food and just everything going on.
Was it beautiful? Was the city beautiful? Was it fun? I mean, the thing is, though, and this is, I was talking to Shannon about this, like, it's kind of crazy in the grand scheme of things to go all that way, and then the greatest part of the day is in a convention center. I imagine the convention center looks about the same.
You know what?
Did it have a beret on it or something? Or
no, in terms of convention centers, it was nice? Pretty cool. They had these cool wooden slats up top, but yeah, I mean, it is what you'd expect, right?
It's just a ton of tables, concrete block. Okay, yeah. So it's a convention center. So you get out and you go do dinner and then maybe like a drink or something afterwards. But the whole of the day is sitting there playing Fab, right?
Yeah.
How many days? 3? 4?
3. So it's Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And, you know, I mean, I think it's one of the reasons you would pick somewhere like Lille over Paris. Because Paris is going to be more expensive for you basically not to get to experience Paris.
Yeah, right.
So that's kind of a central. It's only an hour and 15 minutes from London via train. All of the, you know, the rest of Europe is closer. It's kind of close to the border of Belgium and all that kind of stuff. So it is.
Well, let's dive into what exactly happened in that convention center, shall we? So tell me everything. Let's get it. Can we get a proper Wolfpack update?
Yeah, a whole
just
update.
How did everybody do on the weekend? What was your general thoughts about Pro Tour? We'll come back around.
Yeah. So I'll back up the story a little bit. There were 6 of us playing from the Wolfpack at the Pro Tour.
Who were they? Can you name them?
I can. There's Michael Hamilton.
Oh, it's important.
Yeah. Roger.
Right, Roger and Michael, don't they swim in the same pool?
They're good friends. They do a podcast, the M&R podcast, Manor podcast. If you haven't checked that out, definitely check out their podcast. Michael is one of the best players in the game, and he's just very smart. And he's not a very like aggressive or loud spoken person.
You guys get along?
Yeah, we do. I think we get along. You can ask Michael, but he definitely has like, you can just tell. Like their combo is fun too because Roger brings the salt.
Good.
It's good.
See,
it's
that's
good
every team needs those 2 things. That's why we do well. I think.
And you and Roger, by the way, are the ones talking over in the Bolton
we
chat.
Talk about Man, what if though?
Yeah. Me, of course, Dante Del Frisco.
I'm glad you got to see Dante again out in the wild.
It was really good to see Dante. It's been a minute. And then John Magnuson and Andrew Rothermel.
Right on.
Yeah, I knew them from the Star Wars Destiny days. And kind of the pre-story to the Pro Tour, we were testing together about a month beforehand. Michael Hamilton, he's won 2 callings on Oldham.
Yeah.
And so very early on, probably 2 months before the Pro Tour, him and John, it was really amazing to get to watch them. Because John is kind of crazy. Like ideas and like wacky and tries weird stuff, but then it somehow works.
Ooh, I need to try that part of the equation.
Michael is just like rugged efficiency, don't make mistakes.
He's the Eric Wainwright of Constructed, right?
100%.
Yeah.
And so they were both kind of working on the deck together.
Or like Jeremy Zorn. Is he like a Jeremy Zorn type?
100% Jeremy Zorn.
Okay.
Yeah. But they were working on it together. And so like I would cruise over to the Oldham chat sometimes and it's just like, I don't really understand what you guys are talking about. I play Fab, right?
There's a next but there is a next level understanding that is very much I feel now well outside of.
Yeah.
There's something going on. There's a different scoreboard that's happening somewhere in certain people's brains. They're making better decisions, but it doesn't look like you can't track it turn by turn. It's more of they've made a better decision over the course of the entire game. When taken at a kind of an overview.
Yeah.
I feel like Eric's the same way with that.
Well, and I think we're potentially, but there's a lot that's happened since the Pro Tour, which will lead to this thing I'm about to say. But I think we're getting to a point in the game where games are going to go longer. And people that have played decks that naturally have games go longer, I think about the game in a different way. Oldham particularly, especially back when Michael was winning tournaments with it. they see second, third cycle. So they're not just thinking about what the score is right now.
Yeah.
They're thinking about how am I going to win the game, big picture.
How many threats do they have left?
Yeah, because like, you know, when you're playing Viscerai versus Briar, which I played a lot of, we'll talk about that in a minute. It's really not about what cards are going to be left in my deck at the end of the game. It's how do I create the gap in health now to permanently give me tempo for the rest of the game.
Yeah.
Like no matter what they put together, I'm going to be ahead to win this game, right?
Yeah.
And like I'm trying, essentially in the aggro match, whoever gets the other person to the point where they can threaten lethal first almost always wins.
Yeah.
Because once you start threatening lethal, they have to start blocking. 3-card Runeblade hands are not as good as 5-card Runeblade hands.
Mm-hmm. Like disproportionately, like exponentially. Yeah. Or whatever the opposite of that. What is where the curve goes down? Exponential decline, I guess.
Well, 4th and 5th cards are worth exponentially more.
Yeah. So the opposite, whatever the opposite of that is.
Yeah, they turn linear, right? And linear is bad when the other person can be exponential, is the reality. Anyways, all this to say, it was, for a while, Oldhim has been a topic. Because the meta conversation going into the Pro Tour was Viscerai is probably the most popular, least bad matchups aggro deck.
Okay.
Secondary to that is
Universalist.
Is Briar.
Okay.
And prior to that, it was actually Fi. But Fi had the Stubby Hammerers ban. Mm-hmm. And then Fi kind of cooled down. And then literally the week before the Pro Tour, the calling in Singapore happened and Aggro Dash won.
Yeah, what's up with that?
Well, you play a card and you boost and it gets Goden, and then you play another card and you get boost and it gets Goden.
But how does Dash just never go away? That's the thing that just amazes me. At every turn, Dash might be in the top 8 or win.
Yeah.
For years now.
So it won that tournament. I was already traveling to Europe at that point. Mm-hmm. So I played a couple games online a couple days after that just to make sure. And I think it's really just people aren't blocking.
Oh.
So Dash will run out of cards.
Yeah.
If you have to boost to give everything go again, they have only so many turns of that.
Yeah, because like every card is essentially 2 cards burned.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you literally have, you have a 30-card deck at that point. So you get 7 or 8 turns before you're just out.
Literally out of gas.
Yeah. So technically, if you're blocking for 12 every time, and every card, let's say every card of theirs is worth 4, they should be able to get 4 in 8, 9 times, which is only 36 health. And if you have armor, and now there are things that can go wrong there, but like with Briar, my plan into Dash was literally block, threaten a 0-cost attack that is coming in for 4. For them to block that, they have to either use 2 cards or a card in armor, which is not their game plan. Gives you the embodiment token to get extra blocks, and then now I have 10 non-attacks that block for 4 in my deck.
Yeah.
So you can really just block out. And
so you felt good about that?
Oh, yeah. And you basically just keep doing that unless you have a hand really worth betting on. Like, if I have a Bramblespark Fuse, Channel Mount Heroic Snatch with Go Again, I might just take the damage and do it. Erase Phase is also another really good one because you can remove Mechanologist so they can't boost. Yeah. So, like, you'll take some extra damage to just shut their whole turn down. Anyways, so they were working on Oldhim, and like I was feeling 6 weeks before the Pro Tour, I was like, Briar's the deck. I've been on Briar forever. I think Briar's really good.
Close that door. Keep going.
And I'm comfortable in a lot of matchups, but there's I just need to get reps into specifically Fi at this point, Viscerai, et cetera, et cetera.
The other aggros.
Yeah. And anyways, it was about 6 weeks beforehand. I played against, one day I played against Michael. He was on Oldhim. And I felt pretty good about Oldhim. I have 3. My previous plan was 3 Exude Confidence, 3 Command and Conquer.
Yeah, I remember that. Yep. For Blitz, we did that on the team event.
If they're on defensive Oldhim, a lot of times you can either pitch stack to set up a moment where you have Mount Heroic with Embodiment of Lightning into an Exude Confidence with a couple attacks, and they just can't block. Like if they have 3 D-Reacts in hand, they're dead. Like they just take so much damage. You also just organically get some of those turns throughout the game. Like Heroic into Exude into a Snatch or something. Like, sometimes you just get 15 damage in because they just can't block with anything. But that day I was playing against their version of Oldhim, which was not the defensive version at all. It was actually, they were mid-range to, it's not aggro, it can't be aggro. But it was just like, I'm just going to punch you. and with nasty hit effects that you don't like. And they're
classic guy. This is classic like Bravo style, right?
Of course, you still have Stalagmite and Crown of Seeds, and you can filter, and they can block. Like they can always block. So if you have a turn where they really need to cover up hit effects, they can. If you're not threatening that much, they might take the damage and just send something.
That's a true mid-range deck.
Something gross at you.
Yeah.
I went 0-4 that day. I was like, oh, that's a problem. Like, and it was not particularly close.
Yeah.
So the next day I played against John, who was playing the same deck, 0-4. Like, this is bad.
Yeah.
Like, this is just really bad. And so I was like, well, let me try Viserai into this, because I think this is good. I've been getting reps with this. Let's see how this goes. 0-4 the next day.
Wow.
It's like, this is bad. So then I was like, well, let me see, because what you don't want to do is take out like Exude Confidence and CNC, and then you can beat their version of Oldhim, but the version of Oldhim you're used to seeing everywhere else, you can't beat anymore.
Yeah.
That's like overteching.
Yeah.
Right? And this happens. So the question was, can I keep enough of the deck in place now and also still beat this version? Because it's not, if anyone who doesn't want to play Briar or Viserai or Fi is going to be looking. If you start looking, it's not like rocket science to figure out that you can just punch people with Oldhim. Like,
yeah, right.
That's fine. And there's a lot of hit effects. Like a card that they got into early, and they deserve all the credit because they did a lot of work on that deck, was like Chokeslam. If it has 4 or more, your attacks can't gain. It's like, well, that's pretty bad for Heroic.
Right.
It's like, I take damage, I play a Heroic, you send back a Chokeslam. I have to block with at least 2 cards now.
Totally.
That's a really annoying situation.
Yeah.
And hopefully you don't have Pummel on top of that. Because if you pummel that thing and I blocked with 2 cards and you get the hit effect anyway and I discard a 3rd card, you just mitigated my entire turn.
Yeah.
Anyways, so I was working on that, and like at some point, like to get around the stuff is like, well, you need to be able to block and still send threatening stuff back. So you have to have these like even more mid-range Briar happening. And there's different ways to achieve that.
I just want to take a second and like, do you find it fascinating or like, obviously we've done this for like, you've been on the more competitive side of this than I have, but do you feel that there's an ability to move around within any given hero in like small but super meaningful ways, almost infinitely, it seems like? Because like you see this Oldhim deck and it's like, what have we done? Well, we've got like a Chokeslam in here and maybe a couple other powerful attacks that they got there by like slowly changing cards and strategies within the same card pool that's been there for basically the whole time. And then you start to say like, well, then have they really achieved a level of non-linear deck building within these heroes at this point?
Yes.
You think so?
And it's amazing because like even when they were first testing the Oldhim, part of they actually pivoted even further down the like offensive track. Earlier in it, one of the goals was, can we Earth Ice react every time? That's where it started, and that was actually pretty annoying as Briar because they could block and they're going to send one of your cards back every time.
Yeah.
So now she's actually playing on 3 to 4 card hands. She never gets 5 card hand in that match.
That's interesting.
And then they also have stuff like Blizzard, right? Which is like, well, now not only do you not get a 4 card hand, but like or Channel Lake Frigid, or just all the stuff that they do. And the hit effects that you have to block. So if you had to block a hit effect, like let's say Heroic was out and they do Chokeslam, and you might send a Force of Nature, because you have the Embodiment of Earth, to block for 4 plus a piece of armor, so you only take 2. They don't pummel it, but you're down a card. And then they ice react you. Now you're on a 2 card hand.
Yeah.
It's actually really hard to ever do what you're trying to do out of. So, but then they pivoted away from that because into the other matches, it just wasn't as relevant, like into some of the stuff they were doing. And it was, there would be turns where they couldn't really be offensive because they had too many just ice cards in.
Yeah.
Right. Or whatever the combination was. And they have a ton. I think that Michael's going to be doing like a deck tech on it, if you're interested in the evolution of that deck and why they were on certain cards. But
wow,
I ran into a brick wall because I was feeling great. I had tuned to win the Viserai match and the Briar match and the Fi match. And I was feeling like so good into aggro. And then it was just suddenly I couldn't beat this deck. To make matters worse, Prism Mike and Dante were working on Icelander.
Yeah.
And after this, I was like, I need an old hint break. That's exhausting. I've been doing this for too many days.
So I'm going to go to Icelander?
Yeah, well, and like I just need to make sure I'm not messing with my deck so much to try to win these games that I'm starting to lose these other games. And
you need to turn your light on back there. Oh, you get a little rusty. I got it. I just saw that.
So anyways, then the Icelander match went horrible. And I was like, this is a problem.
So you lose to Icelander and Oldhim like Barn, like just like slaughtered.
Yeah, not good. Not how you... It's fine if it's like 80%, 70% loss rate. But like 95%, 100% loss rate, no good. Don't like that. So anyways, over 2 or 3 days, I was actually able to adjust and beat Icelander.
All right, so what's the philosophy of adjusting to beat Icelander? Like if somebody out there is listening and saying like, I'm also losing to Icelander, what do you have to think about to come up with a different strategy? And this is a good question for like for this whole testing process. 99% of us don't get to do this, right? Like on a team and like really going hard on this. So what do you do mentally to say I need to change, and how do you drive that?
You start identifying, that's why the wraps are important, but you start identifying when disadvantages are being created for you. Mm-hmm. So as an example, Icelander can play blue cards from Arsenal at instant speed on your turn. She can give you a Frostbite if that's a nice card.
Yeah.
And effectively, like, what are the blowout moments? And so if you, basic example is Hypothermia. Things can't get go again. So not only do you get the Frostbite token, but you lose go again. Yeah. So if you're banking the value of a turn around having go again, like, so one play that would be very common in Briar would be like Nimblism, Ravenous Rabble, coming in for 7, 2 cards left in hand. Then the next card you play is Revel in Runeblood, and use like Tunic to swing the sword. So now you create the 4 rune chance and the embodiment of lightning that you don't use yet.
Yeah.
Because you can swing the sword. But if you Nimblism Ravel, and then they play Hypothermia, the Revel in Runeblood did nothing.
Yeah.
And if that's the last card that's left in your hand, you can't even like Tunic to use your Spellbound Creepers to play it because you don't have resources now to swing the next thing.
Right.
So you start understanding what are the tools. Even I had this problem with Ice Lexi too. Mount Heroic is just kind of bad.
Yeah. You just never get that big setup blowout moment.
Yeah, because to set that up, you have to have a blue, usually a blue, or it's worse, but a blue and Mount Heroic. And you kind of want to get some value out of it the turn you play it, ideally.
Yeah.
But even, so let's say you, Heroic, blue card, you really, the turn after the Heroic, you want to be really big. So you kind of want to have a Snatch to send on that turn, and also a card to put in Arsenal, or like the Snatch hits and you get the card for Arsenal. But what that means is the turn that you play in Heroic, usually, like, I don't think people factor this in the math, you take some amount of heat the turn before. It's like that, what was that Guardian card that I was trying for?
Yeah, I remember that. The Crippling Crush. Or
no, it was like the plus 8
Towering
tier.
Titan.
Towering Titan.
Yeah.
It's like, anyways, so you have to take damage to put it into play. You put it into play, and that's like a red alert to Icelander to stop you at all costs.
Yeah.
So if they have Hypothermia in hand, or if they have a Channel Lake Frigid, this is the turn.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to play a Channel Lake Frigid, and all of a sudden it's very hard for you to actually get value out of this thing.
And you're saying Hypothermia. Hypothermia stops gaining go again, like from the embodiment of lightning, right?
Yeah, totally.
It's not like the Ravenous Rabble go again. But
like Scar for a Scar.
Blizzard would stop that. It stops Scar for a Scar for sure, yeah.
Yep. Any embodiment of lightning, that's more akin to what I was meaning.
Or even, do the creepers get action points? They don't give go again,
unless
right?
you play a non-attack as an instant.
Okay.
So you can wiggle out of it there.
Yeah.
But there are just moments where you go from doing a lot on a turn to very little because they blizzard you, or they go again, or they give you 2 Frostbites with the blue Arctic Incarceration. Or on their turn, you play a Heroic, their turn comes, they play red Arctic Incarceration.
Yeah.
It's like, here's 3 Frostbites to start the turn. If you have a 4, like, you could have 4 0 cost go again attacks in hand with a Heroic out, and that just turned from a 28 damage turn to a 7 damage turn.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Which is pretty
crazy. Great for one card. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Wow.
So there's just a lot of stuff where and cards that you want to go wider with into Icelander are tough because you're going to get taxed one way or another. And a lot of times on their turn, they'll play like Winter's Bite, or they'll use the Coronet Peak. It's like you lose a card there. Again, it comes back to Rune Blades like to have 4 or 5 cards. And these decks are inherently either taxing your resources or taxing your cards. Yeah. Even worse is like, so into Icelander, the end game state a lot of times they have the frost taxes out, and they'll, either Ice Vein with a Amulet of Ice out, so they can like get rid of 3 of your cards or something, real quick.
Yeah.
Then your turn comes and it's like, I'll give you a bunch of frostbites. You can't do anything, and also you have 2 frost hexes out. So for every frostbite that you don't get rid of, you're going to take 2 arcane damage.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, like
you can start getting
that can collapse really quick. Yeah, so the faster you win against Icelander, the better.
True.
But don't let her get set up. She's a setup deck.
Yeah.
Like she will get her pieces into play and set it up. And then the more damage you can do without having to go wide, the better.
So you start shifting into how tall can I get against this deck?
Yeah, because for Icelander to do anything, right, what she likes to do on her turn is play a card from Arsenal. So a lot of times that's 0 cost or 1 cost. And then also like use a wand potentially. So that's Arsenal and a card. It's 2 cards. So if she's blocking, right, she can only block with so many cards before she can't do anything on her turn and get a card in Arsenal.
Right, yeah.
So you have to...
Then in draft, we deal with that a lot.
It's the same thing with Kano, where you want to pressure damage so that they have to block.
Yeah.
So that they can't just go crazy on their turn or at the end of your turn. And you want to do it without spending all your cards. So you can basically threaten Arcane Barrier, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's, instead of trying to go for the big turns, you're just more okay with just above medium turns, right?
Yeah.
If I can get to the point where I'm over the 6 threshold, because she can block with 2 cards, play something from Arsenal, and still put another card back in Arsenal. But once it's like a snatch for 7,
yeah,
that's uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And she doesn't have that much armor, so she doesn't want to send 3 cards, because then she's not gonna be able to do anything back to you on their turn. So, anyways, it was a playstyle change, and then some amount of card change to threaten more of those turns and less of the 20
That's
damage
nice.
turns. Yeah.
So you can't. So there is that room to maneuver. It seems like within heroes and just play styles at this point, that you can kind of keep tweaking to solve problems.
Mm-hmm.
Seemingly.
Yeah, and the balance is, of course, like the more I tweaked for Icelander and Oldhim, the worse I got into the aggro matches.
Mm-hmm.
And my prediction is I thought aggro would be 50-60% of the field. So at some point I said, I'm probably not going to play more than 1 or 2 Oldhims, even though I think going in, I thought Oldhim was the best deck.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to do it, but like...
You thought Michael might do it, right?
I thought about switching. Like it was that rough of a match. And it's like, I know people are going to be on Fist and Fi and Prior, and this Oldhim deck is just smoking them. Like it's uncomfortable. Even when I know what they're doing and I'm testing for it and I'm tweaking for it, it's bad.
Yeah.
So especially if they go and they sideboard for the defensive version, it's not good. It's a perfect deck for that moment. Yeah. So, but I didn't have the time, and I had the reps on Briar, and I didn't think I would see a ton of Oldhim. So that's what I went in with. John and Michael ended up on Oldhim. Andrew was bouncing around. He wanted to play Dromai. He wanted to play Lexi. That was just a comfort deck.
Man, he took the Andrew more.
And then he ended up on Oldhim.
Okay. Seeing the same thing, seeing the same list. Yeah. Play it.
Yeah. And then Dante stuck with Icelander.
Cool.
For a number of reasons. One is that I think she's pretty brutal into aggro, especially aggro that's not tacked and or ready. For her, and there were only 6 or 7 Icelanders, I think, in the field.
Yeah.
And I have mad respect for Icelander. And she's getting a little more popular now, which we'll talk about later. But anyways, that's like the backstory on how we arrived at the Pro Tour. And like...
So walk me through it, man. It's 9 a.m. on the first day of the Pro Tour.
Yeah, and my body's processing that.
You're processing all sorts of garbage. Yeah. What's the vibe in the room? What's the atmosphere? Weave me a tale.
It was good. It was actually less tense than the Pro Tour in New Jersey.
Okay.
I think it's not the first Pro Tour, so some people have experience. I think the other piece is that the first 3 rounds are draft. So there's like this anticipation. Everyone's ready to draft because they just want to know how's the draft going to go. But there's also, you can't do anything about that. Like,
yeah,
you just got to sit down and do the draft.
Yeah, find it out. You can't like test. It's just a draft.
Now, a lot of people tested draft a lot. We tested quite a bit, but The one thing that was interesting is the cards were actually, the packs were pre-opened and stamped and then resealed, which they do that to make sure that, I could show up with a deck box of sleeves and it's like the perfect draft deck.
Yeah.
And it could, so they're all stamped, which is cool.
That's really nice.
It's like a cool souvenir too to have. It's like the stamped cards, and the day one stamps were different than the day two stamps, the color and stuff. It's cool.
Wicked.
But the draft happens in the draft is 6 out of 14 rounds. So 3 rounds draft, 4 rounds constructed, rinse, repeat.
It's not possible to win all your constructed matches and lose all your drafts and still go anywhere, right?
So to make top 8, you have to go 10-3.
Okay.
And there's 6 rounds of draft. So you could actually be removed from the tournament. You could go 0-3 in the first draft, and you basically can't make the top 8.
Wow, that is intense. And I'm sure some people did go 0-3 in the first draft.
Well, they have
Came
to.
all the way to France and went 0-3 in a draft.
There have to be those people.
Oh my gosh. Then you get to go have a good time, I guess.
Yeah. So one thing that was interesting to me, and I do feel like I got a little. It was never promised, but I think it's like too techie for me. So when we were doing the practicing, we were noting box and pack distribution and how many copies of various stuff happen. And as an example, in general, you get 2 of each equipment in a box. And then there's 2 equipment that there's a 3rd copy of. And this doesn't count foils. But effectively, if you've seen 2 non-foil Spellfire cloaks, those are probably the 2 in the box.
Okay.
There might be a 3rd copy.
Like a foil one or something, yeah.
So same thing with Red Rake the Embers. It's most boxes have 3 copies of that card in the box.
Wow.
Yeah. So you get into a little...
That gets interesting.
So I remember we were drafting, and my thesis on drafting this set is first 5 or 6 picks, I'm looking for bombs. For any class.
Take the best cards.
Yep. And if by pick 5 or 6, it's not clear that I have 2 or 3 bombs for Dromai or Icelander, I'm going Fi.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't matter. I'm going Fi.
Yeah.
Because I think Fi can play 3 Phoenix Flames and also can play with the least good cards.
Yeah.
And still potentially go 2-1.
And if everybody has that strategy to an extent, all of those other decks are going to be worse because you took the bombs from them, and Fi is, on the whole, better if everybody's worse.
Yeah,
right?
If there's a bunch of Fis, everyone's got a bad deck.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So my first pick was Red Rake the Embers.
Good.
It's the best card in the pack. There was really nothing else that I particularly wanted. I just remember that distinctly because I was I did not want to be on Dromai.
Yeah, really. Oh man, I would have killed to be on Dromai.
But it's I felt like people being clever. I think Dromai is really good when she's good, especially in draft. And I think a lot of people want to be on Dromai.
Yes.
But if you end up with 3 or even 4 Dromai, it's really bad.
Yeah.
And so I didn't want it. But here we were. So then the second pack, I got past Red Aether Ice Vein, which is the Wizard Bomb. Yeah. In case you didn't know that.
Yeah, definitely.
Third pack, I got past Red Aether Ice Vein.
Okay.
I'm all right.
Because you like Icelander and draft.
I do like Icelander. Yeah. It's I do. But 3 picks in, I'm on 2 Red Ice Veins. And that, to me, signals that the 2 players to my right probably are not on Wizard.
Yeah. What do you take over at Ice Vein is the question, right? Maybe Spellfire? I think
what you might take is Sash of Sandakai, or some people draft the equipment really high, like the cloak, Spellfire cloak, or maybe it was Red Fandal's Fighting Spirit.
Sure.
So you could possibly, especially the person right next to me, they could still be on Icelander, and they just took a generically good card, Red Scar, First Scar, that kind of stuff. But once you get the second one, it's hard to believe at least the person to your right immediately is going to end up on Icelander.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't find that likely. And once you have 2 Ice Veins, you're kind of there. At this point, you
get blues.
You need the blues and the ice cards, and 0 cost arcane damage cards.
Mm-hmm.
But those are going to be there. There's going to be a lot of copies of Frosting around Ice Binds, et cetera, et cetera. So draft's going, and I feel pack 1. I feel pretty good about it.
You keep seeing more Icelander cards?
Yeah, definitely.
Reasonable.
Yeah. And towards the end of pack 1, you get 4 cards, and 3 of them are wizards, and you're okay.
Yeah, you did it.
Great. All right. Yeah. So I'm this might be a 2-1, maybe a 3-0 situation. This is what you want.
But then the scone's in there, and then it's but I feel my energy fading.
So anyways, going the other direction, it was fine, and it didn't feel like people were drafting Icelander cards, but there were like no blues.
Mm-hmm. That does happen in this pack sometimes.
Yeah. So it was like
yellow. You get those yellows.
Those wonky
sickly yellows. Yeah.
So if you're on all the reds, you can at least like block out and send Arcane Damage, like especially the 0 for 3s. Mm-hmm. It's a fun block 9, spin 3. You can do that all day. Like that's fine. But a lot of yellows are coming, and I'm like, this is not good. Then pack 3, we're going back the other way.
It's the exact noise playing in your head.
And like the blues start showing up again, which is good. I think the first pack, the other wizard at the table was taking blues aggressively. Smart. But there weren't like a double blue packs, you know? And then in the third pack, they had taken the blues, so now they're taking the power cards. So I'm seeing more of the blues. But even then, looking at boxes and stuff, Icelander, one of the riskier parts is that some boxes very easily support like 3 wizards. Some boxes don't. Yeah. And the boxes on the wizard cards particularly are very variable. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you get a ton of brain freeze. Yeah. Sometimes it's a bunch of ice fans. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's a ton of blue. Sometimes it's not. Yeah. So like, it is what it is.
It's risky.
Yeah. Anyways, so at the end of the day, I had a little less blues than I wanted, like a pinch, but I had a lot of the power cards and a lot of stuff I wanted. I had a lot of reds. They could do 3, and like, I was totally happy with that. I never once saw Spellfire Cloak.
Interesting.
So, and there only ended up being 2 wizards at the table.
Okay.
And talking to the other wizard, who was my first opponent, come back to that in a second. No. He saw 1, he saw 2. He picked 1, but that also means mid-pack, I think 2, someone on my left hate drafted that card.
Yeah, he took the cloak.
Like, they can't play it. They're not playing wizard. They're not pivoting.
Yeah.
What's crazy about that is like the cloak is only particularly good in the wizard mirror.
Yeah, like, so true.
The resource is somewhat valuable, but most of my Icelander turns, that extra resource doesn't do anything.
It opens up like the Frostbolt, I think, the blue Frostbolt and stuff.
Yeah. But. There's some play, but not high.
Yeah.
It's not like you're taking let's say you're on wizard and you open the second pack and there's a Tiger Stripe Shuko's in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, you would take that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not only is it valuable, but that's like super good for anyone that's on
Okay, that's interesting. And then you get the mirror first.
So I get mirror round 1.
Gross.
And I just get slaughtered. Not slaughtered, but it's clear. Like, I went second, and everything went wrong. So I chose to go second because I have Helios Miter. So as long as I draw a couple blues, no matter what they send at me, I can kind of just cancel it out and then go from there. And then I drew 4 reds.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh no. And they sent a 5 red with the wand on top, and I can only stop 2 damage. And it was just like, and then now they can also stop. It's just bad. Bad all around. So I lose round 1.
Not good.
Great feeling.
Great start. Okay, so now we're a little more nervous. Yeah, we're like, God.
It's not good. In the second round, I played against a Dromai, which I want Fi. Like if I'm on Icelander,
you want Fi.
I definitely want Fi. And that was like, you have to work for like this game too. I've lost the first round. This one is like you're working hard for the money.
Yeah.
And I barely squeak away with a win.
Wow.
And it was just like super close. So round 3, I'm like, all right, give me that Fi. Like give me the Fi. I feel pretty good. I can go 2-1. We're into this thing. Dromai. Mm-hmm. So I think there were 2 wizards, 2 Dromais, and 4 Fis at the table.
That's about right.
Yeah. And of course I lost round 1, which probably put me in the not Fi bracket. You know what I mean? So anyways, I played against Dromai. And also what's really cool at this point, I wrote down the countries where people are from. So my first opponent, Matt, from Poland.
Cool.
My second opponent, Gwydion, from Spain.
Wow.
My third opponent, Jiri, from Finland.
How cool.
Like that,
that
is
cool,
super
man.
cool.
Yeah.
So even if I'm getting smacked around, like that's super good. So this is where I overtech myself, which is funny.
Interesting.
Because I took a red rake. The player I ended up playing in round 3 was on my right. And there was also a Dromai on my left. So, and I played the other Dromai at this point. So I took 1, and I had seen 1.
Yeah.
In the second round opponent's deck. Round 3, I had 2 red
Singe.
So in my head, it was like there's only 1 red rake left, maybe a foil. So like I have to watch out. He might have 2. So early on, like turn 2, he plays a red rake. I have a red Singe in hand. this is fine.
Yeah. Perfect. Yeah, it feels good.
Clear it, great. After that turn, I clear, put a card in arsenal, draw back up, I have another Singe in hand. And it's on his turn, and I'm sitting there, and it's like, he's doing his thing, and I have a choice to block for 3 with a Singe that I'm not going to be able to use. I could pitch it for something. Yeah. It's like, it's not like a crucial to my current turn. It's the extra cards with Iceland that you block with.
Yeah.
And it's like, do I think he actually has a foil copy of Red Rake the Embers? It's like, I don't think so. So then I block. Literally the next turn, he plays a non-foil Red Rake.
Wow.
So it was a 4th Rake. And not only that, on that same turn, this is the best part. So he played the first Rake, cleared it out, plays the second Rake. Same turn, he plays Ovia.
Oh, no.
The turn before, he played Yundarai.
Yeah.
That I used my 6th popper to pop.
Yeah.
So I felt great.
Good. Yeah.
But then he plays Ovia. I don't have a way to kill that in my entire deck.
No, you can't. Yeah, and it's just Arcane Barrier 20,000 at that point.
So he has 3 red rakes, plays an Ovia, gets a 4th. Or plays
4 Ashwings.
4 Ashwings, and 1 is coming a turn.
Yeah.
It did not end well.
And you can just sit back and block all your Arcane for the rest of the game.
Which is what he did.
Incredible.
Yeah. So I started out 1 and 2. Yeah, feeling just peachy. Yeah.
Wow.
Then next round I played Mike from Canada. He was on Briar. So we're in Constructed Town. So
here we go. Okay, so you're going in 1 and 2, which is like awful. Because like if you lose 1 more, you're on the edge of the needle there, on the edge of the knife.
You can technically play day 2 at 4 and 3. Like if you go 4 and 3.
If you want to Pablo it.
Yeah. But even then, if you went 10 and 3, there's probably going to be 1 or 2 10 and 3s that don't make the cut.
That's devastating. Can you imagine undefeated day 2 and then you bubble at 9th or something?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
It does happen.
Oh,
yeah, for sure. So anyways, Briar Mirror, and that was it's just the kind of game where nothing felt right.
Yeah.
Like this is where the oats would have helped. You know what I mean? Some of it was off. Like it was just like the deck was clumpy. I was feeling weird. Nothing was lining up. There was a crucial moment where like I had a heroic out, and the choice was I could either block with a Tome Harvest for 3, or no, what was it?
Play it, presumably.
Well, so I had a blue Burgeoning heroic out, and the only attack I drew in my drawback hand was blue Burgeoning. That's what it was. So I could either pump with like a Bramble Spark, and then play the Burgeoning for 10 with an Arcane by pitching the Tome, or I could pitch the Tome, or pitch the Burgeoning to play the Tome, get rid of the Bramble Spark, draw 3.
Yeah.
And I had seen like very few of my 0 cost go against stuff.
You gotta play the odds on
and
that.
I was like, as long as I hit 1, and he was at like 5 health.
Dude, I know how this story ends.
Yeah, I was like, as long as I hit 1.
Once in your head, it's as long as is over.
As long as I hit 1. If I hit 2, though, this is just like buried good. As long as I hit any attack, though.
No.
Like, I'm going to have the resources, like Command and Conquer would be perfect. He's going to have to block with 2 cards, like, it's this whole thing.
It's like Sonata.
Yeah, so then I play Tome Heart. I'm like, you know what? Risk it for the biscuit. Like, I can't play scared. I play Tome Harvest, pitch the Burgeoning, lose the Bramble, draw 3, and it's just like 2 Blue Weave Earth and Potatoesville. So I'm like, I create the upside is I got to keep heroic.
Yeah.
So played another attack, got the Embodiment of Lightning, pitched the other Earth card to get a Rune Chant, swung a sword. So I have heroic again. Earth.
Made some French fries.
Yeah. And then on his turn, lucky for me, I guess, he just played the wrong card.
Really?
Yeah, he played a blue Earthlore Surge instead of his Erase Face. And like...
Just on accident.
Well, like he
whoops.
Pitches it, plays it, gets his Embodiment token, has the card he can't play anymore because he just pitched the resource. I think he thought he could do both. But in his head, because anyways, it's just a mistake.
Wow.
Now, I still would have been able to like block it.
Wow. Though.
And then send an attack back and have to block, and it's like grindy, but he makes a mistake and then I win the game. Like,
okay.
But even now, I'm 2 and 2. The one game I won in draft was like scraping and scrawling. This game, it's like not. It's like, what is happening?
You feel like you wanted a mistake almost.
Yeah.
Like they made a mistake.
Yeah. So that's.
So you're not filled with confidence. The psychology of the pro tour at work here.
So also, this is worth going on a tangent about. One of the biggest question marks in my list going into this event was forever I've been on 3 Tome of the Arknight. I was playing Tome of the Arknight back at Pro Tour 1. Into any match that I was unfavored, whether it's going first or second into a certain match, or particularly Chain and Starvo.
It's your Hail Mary. It's your polecat polecat offense. Your onside kick.
Half the time it draws me 2 cards and kind of busts the game. Half the time it does nothing. If I'm going to lose anyway, like, go for it.
Yeah.
I love that card. But, as you can imagine. Yeah. Meanwhile, Roger won't touch it. Yeah, right. he was even like, 2 weeks before, he's like, you need to cut Sonata. Like, that card is garbage. Like, the fact that it can never miss, like, don't do it. Just play something that always does what it does. More on that later. But, so, I would say that because in round 4 I was playing against Zane, my first U.S. opponent of the weekend. I met Zane before. Great player. Really, really nice guy. He's on Vis. I feel really good in the Vis match.
This is round 5, I think. Yeah. Right, Zane? Who was round 4?
Mike from Canada.
Mike from Canada, that's right. Yeah, okay. Wow.
So we're getting closer to home.
Cool, right? This is cool.
And so I feel good. Now the deck is working, you know? I'm like into it. It's like, all right, finally, we have arrived. I'm feeling ahead, having a lot of good exchanges. I'm getting ahead on health. And I think he's at like 10 health or something, or 8, or somewhere down low. And I'm feeling pretty good. And then he's like, well, this isn't really what I want to be doing this match, but I guess Tome the Arknight. Yeah.
He's doing the same thing you've been doing, which is take a shot.
And I'm like, all right, well, we'll see. He flips, and it's like Mavrian Skies with a thing that's reduced for every rune chant, and he has 3 rune chants, so it's free. So it is like Mavrian free swing sword. Like, super good value.
Great turn,
off of that moment. And so, I blocked to stop the rune chants from the Mavrian, and then like, okay, and then he gets a little closer on the health. And then the next turn happens, and he's like,
another one, doesn't he?
This is, I guess, Tome the Arknight, and he hits. He hits. And then I lose that game 1-0. And it was bad. So at that point, I'm X3. Probably, who knows? At that point, I'm like, maybe I should play the Calling more or whatever. But I got to finish out the tournament. Elo's on the line. This is the Pro Tour. We'll see what happens. Next round, played Justin. He was from Oregon. Zane was from California, by the way. So I keep him track in the States. He's on Prism. I'm on Briar.
Yeah.
This is why we're here.
This is a beautiful matchup.
This is why we're here.
We love it.
And that game was unbelievably favored to me. Mm-hmm. Like, I my final health was 27. Everything went right. I went first. My turn 1 was just play heroic, pass. So you can't play an aura because I still have my action point, and I start with a heroic, and I put I think it was Red Scar in Arsenal. Then he swings something at me, I take the damage, and I just unload. It's just like gross.
Love it.
Round 7, I'm playing against James. From I can't read my handwriting.
You're on round 7 handwriting Boston. At this point. You're going on a croissant and a dream.
Boston. I'm like, what hero are you playing? It's like Prism. I'm like, oh, thank God.
We've got a chance.
And I won this game as well. Everything went right. I will say that was my favorite game of the day. James was incredible. He was just like very professional about playing, very clean, but having a good time.
Oh, you love that.
And we're in a game where
that's what we should strive for.
The loser is 3-4, the winner's 4-3. So like, this is kind of.
Technically, it's all on the line.
Yeah, and no one wants to be at this moment in the tournament, but here we are. Yeah, and it was just a really nice end note to the tournament, and I got the win. So I'm 4-3, and I debated for 10 minutes, drop and play the Calling, or
Calling was constructed or draft?
Pure constructed.
Okay.
And I had also made some questionable sideboard decisions.
Yeah?
Yeah, so effectively, I felt fine enough into the aggro matches. So I leaned a little heavier on my sideboard towards Oldham and Icelander.
Yeah.
Because I felt like there would be some of those at the end. And if I can put myself in a position to get there, I want to have the tools for that. I don't want to just lose because I don't have tools that I know I could play. In hindsight, given that I played a bunch of Prisms and a bunch of aggro, I didn't see a single Oldham. I didn't see a single Icelander.
But if you had gone 4-0, you might have. Or 5-0, you never know, right?
Yeah. I think all Oldhams were hanging out at the XM1, XM2 category, which it's deceiving because you have the draft up front. Mm-hmm. So who knows?
They could be undefeated Oldhams, but lost a couple drafts. Yeah.
Yeah. So I decided to go ahead and play the Pro Tour, just because it's the Pro Tour. And I almost played the Calling just so I could tweak my sideboard. And the meta from Pro Tour Day 1. Mm-hmm. And so you can kind of judge that to see how. And Prism was weirdly popular, but the Pro Tour and the Calling, which was
Prism's
great.
Always weirdly popular.
Yeah. Well, not anymore.
Yeah, not anymore. Yeah.
So going to day 2 of the draft, this went weird. Like, there were no bombs in the first 5 or 6 card. I ended up on 5. And I was playing against I was on 5, but I had 4 poppers. And there were 3 drummers at the table, I think. So it was like,
okay,
this is...
You got a spot.
I can make this happen. It was a fine 5 deck. Mm-hmm. Round 1, Icelander.
Yeah.
And I almost win. I almost had it. I got him down to 1. Like, I was 1 short on my... Like, and I had the cards in hand that if they were not... Like, one of the cards was yellow. It's like, if this had been the red card, you have to block and you can't do what you're doing, and then I don't die.
Yeah.
Like, it was very close.
So it was really close.
Yeah. So I lost, and now it's like I'm X4.
And at that point, you like, I wish I'd have played the calling? Or are you just like, whatever?
Not yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was fine. So literally at that point, I'm like, okay, there's still 3 Dromais around. I think I can beat the 5s. And if I get a Dromai, it's going to be like easy. Mm-hmm. Next round, Icelander.
Oh.
So I saw both Icelanders at the table.
Perfect. Just the reverse of what you had in the first draft, too, of what you needed.
And that one wasn't close. Like, I just got... At that point is when I was like, man, I should have played the calling. Like this. Yeah. Because you're betting on draft. Really. I wasn't worried about constructed. But, like, who knows how draft will go.
What does it look like to get annihilated by Icelander? What is happening in a draft for that to...
By the way, these opponents are from Australia and Australia.
Cool.
No, Austria. Australia and Austria.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it's just like ice veins are coming out of nowhere and blue.
As 5, it just means they stop you from doing anything. So, like, you have a 4 red card hand and they play a red Arctic.
Yeah. Okay.
Like, okay, I'll play a 0 cost for 3.
Yeah.
It's swing you for 3.
Yeah.
Not good. Or it's like red Aether Ice Vein, you take the damage, you lose a card. Wand, they do more damage on their turn, or on your turn, they're like, let's say you have an all red hand again. They just give you a Frostbite.
Yeah.
And then it's like
blue frosting or something.
Now you do like kind of a half thing, and you never really threaten much and do much, and they just like the whole time it was constant. Like Icelander can stumble, where they can't Ice Vein you, or they don't have the ice cards, and they can't put a blue in Arsenal, and they can't threaten you. And that's usually when you can like establish the tempo situation.
I see.
So that was not good. But yeah, so the next round I was playing is Glenn from Belgium. He was on 5, so I saw none of the Dromais.
Wow, it's so funny.
Especially with 3 of them. It's like I took all the 6s, and I was like...
It's probably because they were winning because nobody else had 6s.
That's exactly what it was. Yeah, I should have passed some 6s to my friends, right? But that's part of draft. I mean, it's like I was super ready for the Dromais, and if I happened to get one round 1, it probably would have been a whole different half the bracket for me. And I think that I took 2 of those in the first 4 or 5 picks, and they just were there. And there weren't better cards, so I took that and ended up on 5, and here we are. So at this point...
do you lose the fire you won? The 5 mirror? Or do you even care at this point?
So actually, I won the Icelander game.
Oh, did you?
The second one, yeah.
You didn't get obliterated at all.
Yeah, that was the opposite. The first game was in control. The second game, I actually had openings and got the game.
Okay.
Third game against Fi, I lost.
Okay.
They won the roll, so they had me go first. That's a disadvantage. They also had way better armor than I had. Mm-hmm. Like, they had the full suite, and I think I had the boots, which is the least good. That's part of why I think I could beat Icelander, because I had the Arcane Barrier. Like, it is what it is. So anyways, I win that game. Then we're back to Constructed. And this is the round that almost broke me. This was Casey from Denver. He was on Prism.
Oh, no, you can't lose to Prism.
You can't.
No, you can't let that happen. It's unacceptable. So, like, we don't even...
Part of playing the Pro Tour to me was like, there's way more ELO on the line.
Yeah.
And top 50 ELO for either qualify for Worlds, which would be nice. And so I was like, even if draft goes bad, as long as Constructed, if I can go 3-1 Constructed, that's like really good. That's good for me to do. So I get paired into Prism. I'm like, great. Playing against Casey, I go first. And it was fine, whatever. I do my opening thing. Then his turn, he goes, and first thing he does is Herald of Your Edition. You know exactly where the story's going. So I have a 3 in hand, and I've got my Grasp of the Arknight. So I block with a 3 in the Grasp.
Oh, no. Is he going to replicate it?
No, worse. Yellow Pummel.
Oh, gosh.
So he pummels. I take 3. I have to discard a card.
Yeah.
Okay. He draws 2. Fine. Herald of Your Edition.
Oh, gosh.
So my options at this point are block with my helmet and my tunic and a 2 from hand, or take it and hope it's not that bad.
Mm-hmm. I think that's what I do.
Yeah, so I blocked for 2. I took the damage. He draws his 2 more cards. And then he plays 2 red Wartune Heralds. So 1 for 7, 1 for 7. Just like nasty.
Slapping.
Yeah. So he ended up getting in 8 plus
14.
22 damage on turn 1. Yeah. Not hot. Not really hot. And then to make matters worse, so like
not hot.
So then I take my turn. It's fine. Literally the next hand I draw back up, I drew 3 6s.
Oh, what a slap in the face.
So like obviously one of those on the turn before is just like
absolute slap in the face.
Totally different game. And I was running 8 6s. Like I don't mess around with Prism.
It's a slap. Oh,
but what's amazing is that because he's way ahead, right? So he starts making what I would call questionable decisions because he's just trying to finish the game, right? Yeah. But that gives me opportunities to play smart and get back in the game. Like he's taking risky things. I am loaded with 6s now, so like I'm just just popping his turns, and then I'm swinging damage, and he takes the damage, so he can threaten more against me. So he's taking damage to threaten more, but then I just pop it with 6s.
Yeah.
And then eventually I get to a heroic turn, and now everything pops everything, and it's just like crazy. And then I actually feel like I'm ahead again.
Wow.
I'm a 4 or 5 health, and I have him down to like 3. And then Briar did what Briar does, which is I drew a total potato hand. So I threaten whatever I'm going to threaten, get an embodiment. His turn comes, and then I'm just kind of on the back foot. And there's like moments where there's one moment where he almost messed up. He almost blocked with the blue when he shouldn't be because he needs the arcane barrier, and then I had the revel to be able to do enough damage to kill him, and instead he blocks with the red, and then like he almost does it, and then he doesn't, and it's like we were that close. Anyways, he won.
Wow,
that was the next moment.
It's devastating.
Where I was like, I should totally have been playing in the calling right now. And at about that time, I look, and 2 of the people that I had played the day before, both of which I beat in the Swiss part of the constructed, were like 6-0 in the calling. Yeah. And I'm just like, oh man, what have I done? This is a mistake. But having I honestly, Casey was great. It was just like him starting with a Herald thing was like pretty oppressive. Yeah. But it was really like, it was a fun challenge to try to get back in the game. And then, of course, demotivating to then potato out.
You got to have that Briar potato, though.
As Briar does. Next, I played Victor from Bulgaria. He was on Viserai. And that went, that was classic. Like, just patty cakes.
Like, he just wrecked it.
Yeah, it was good. That's how the Viserai I played against Zane felt, except for he didn't hit 2 of Tome the Arknight. So, like,
sure.
You know, if you get 10 health ahead, it feels pretty good. It was just that kind of situation. Next, I played Karius from Greece. Isn't this crazy? Wow. With a number of countries here. And he was on Viserai. And he just smoked me.
Really?
Which happens.
Isn't that crazy, though? Isn't that wild?
In the, like, aggro situation, especially as Briar, like, he can put out a lot of damage. And if you aren't seeing, like, the heroics or threatening the hit effects that matter, sometimes he just wins.
He just gets you.
Yeah. So he got me. Then the last round. So at this point, I'm going to the last round. If I win, I'm 2-2 at constructed on the day. Which is at least even on wins and losses.
That's true.
You know?
It's the same number.
It's from an ELO perspective, it's not. I was like 40 something, so like it's not good, but losing here is like really bad actually for my ELO. Like I could use this. Yeah. And Alec is on Dash.
Interesting. And you tested some against Dash.
Yep.
Just black.
Just black. Yep. Yeah. So my turn, I had to go first. Turn 1, play heroic. That's a good start. Put a card in arsenal. That's a good start.
It's not a great blocking turn, but it's a good start.
Yeah. So then literally, their turn 1, boom, coming at me hot with big. It's the like, if this hits, the next attack gets +3. The thing you always block. Yeah. But I'm looking at my hand.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So
you went against the zone advice.
Because I had, not only did I have the attacks.
I'm not blocking that.
Yeah, literally, all my training was like, you know what, look. Just block it and you win the game, right?
Yeah.
That's what you're supposed to do. And I didn't.
So much for training, right?
Yeah. Well, I think it's the kind of thing, I don't know what is in writing, I think it's referenced. It's like you have to know the rules before you know when you can break them.
Yeah.
And this is a moment where you could break it because I had, I think it was 2 or 3 go-again attacks and a Force of Nature.
Okay.
With a heroic out. And so it's just the turn, right? And so I literally, it's funny, I don't block. And the whole time, Alec is like, you're supposed to block, right? Like, I thought this was going to be a mid-range game. Like, what's going on?
Yeah.
I was like, And then I do like Scar for a Scar from Arsenal or whatever. And then I instant in the Force of Nature to get the card draw. They can't block. I get the card draw, and now it's like a problem. And then it just, I got ahead by a lot.
So you're able to out aggro with that.
Yeah, but just barely, actually. So, like, in the end, it came down to it, and, like, I was at 2 when they were at 12.
Yeah.
On my last turn.
You going into the 12, basically, yeah. And
I had to take the damage all the way down to 2. So I had another heroic out, and I had another Force of Nature in hand.
Wow.
And so I was like, and like I'd been able to do Arcane every turn because they weren't stopping it.
Yeah.
So I kept the boots out the whole time.
Wow.
And so I was like, well, hypothetically, if I swing for 7 without go again, I think it was a snatch. No, it wasn't a snatch. It was just like it's maybe a Scar or something.
Scar, Rabble.
Whatever it was. Swing for 7. They're going to know I'm going to do the boots, and I have done the Force of Nature play. So they should know this is Force of Nature. Like, this is textbook Force of Nature. If they block it, though, that's 3 cards out of hand. So they're not going to be able to do much after that. I'm still getting my action point and have another attack to send to hit to draw a card and hopefully get another attack. But if they don't block, it gets, like, really uncomfortable for them.
Yeah.
Because they're going to go down to, like, 5, and then I'm going to get a draw for sure. And I already know I have 1 extra attack, and, like, not good. And so they're looking through the discard pile. Mm-hmm. It's like, what's the worst this could be? And they're like, Nimblism, Bramble, like, just
not
like,
Force of Nature.
Not Force of Nature at all. And I was just like,
you just said
it's in there. Like, it's in your hand.
Yes, Nimblism is the worst this could go.
And they're like, you know what? No block. And I was like, cool.
Yeah.
Instant speed with my Tunic, Force of Nature. And they're like, oh, that's the worst it could go.
Yeah.
Like, that's it. An extra attack
that's flesh and blood right there.
Is bad.
Yeah.
Because I think at that moment with me at 2, honestly, if they just block out, stop me from drawing. Because I think they did have their chest piece left, the 2 armor. So they could block with 2 in that. And then they didn't know this, but the other attack in my hand was Gloomveil. So the first attack hitting not only draws me a card, it gives me the embodiment, which means now Gloomveil has go again. Mm-hmm. Whereas if they cover the first one up, then they could have covered the second one up. And that was the risk I was taking. They would at least be out of hand, but then now they're at 12, and I have to find a way to kill them.
Yeah.
Quickly.
They just need 1 opening to put you on.
And that turn spiraled out of control. Because then I send the thing, they block that one. Then I got another 0 attack, so I come in for 7. They can't block a 7 without losing their whole hand. So they did lose their whole hand, but then now they're on like 3 life, and then the next turn I was able to kill them. So
you didn't hit the potato patch though. I mean, that's the thing. It's like you can just let Briar try to do that.
Yeah. So I finished the weekend 7-7.
All right.
I went 2-4 at draft. Very bad. I went 5-3 at constructed.
Okay.
Which is good,
That's
not
respectable.
Great. Yeah. Even from like an ELO perspective, it should be a net positive for me, which is
good.
Important.
It's supposed to be the best players in the world, right?
Yeah.
And 5-3, that feels good.
Yeah. So I felt pretty decent. The Briar ended up being all of the top 4 decks.
That's crazy.
So I don't think I made the wrong choice on that front.
Yeah.
The winning Briar was actually Matt Fulks, the UK national champion. He was on Belittle Briar. His deck was pretty wild.
Was it weird? Did you test Belittle at all because Belittle was all over the chat for a while.
Belittle Briar that's not an unknown. That was the thing. I get it. I totally get it. I just don't like it. I don't know why. It's probably a problem. It's
probably a me thing.
It's a me thing. So essentially, the Belittles are guaranteed go again. They block for 2. Obviously, the Belittle minnowism efficiency is pretty high. But the having to run attacks that only attack for 3 versus the ones that naturally attack for 4 feels like you're trading in consistency in a deck that already has consistency issues for higher highs when they're high.
Yeah. And
so personally, I wasn't a huge fan. And like there are matches that I think are better and worse for either iteration of the deck. And I do, he was running 3 Tome of the Arknight, 3 Tome of Harvest, Gorganian Tome, 2 Tome of Fandel. He was running Promise of Plenty.
Wow. So all the draws, all the it's just get cards.
Filter, and even playing the Belitos to get the red Minnowisms mean that the Minnowisms aren't in your deck, which means that the odds when you play like a Tome of Harvest to draw into Mount Heroic go up.
I kind of love that because it's also, it makes all of your, even your tomes like you're talking about, you basically just have your highest octane cards and you try to make them hit as often as possible. You increase the odds as much as you can by pulling stuff out of the deck and filtering.
And that's 100% what he's doing. Just all the draw, all that.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. And Tome of the Arknight, I think that's if your deck is split 50-50, it's like a 50-50 shot to hit. It's a game-breaking card. Mm-hmm. And I think it used to be kind of like people would always raise their eyebrow when they would play it. I don't think it's going to happen anymore because it was obviously in the Pro Tour winning list, and I think it's very good.
I love hearing that, by the way. Like just approaching Briar in that way of like, hey, what if I tried it like this? And it's like, it worked.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was the only one of the top 4 of the Briars that was like that.
That's the dream.
And so, anyways, so that felt good. In terms of the other players, we actually, the pack, there were 2 players. Was it 2 or 3? I think there were just 2. 2 people in the last round that were X and 3.
Oh.
So we went in. It was Michael and John. They're both on Oldhim. And they both got paired against Prism.
Oh, yeah.
Like their number one thing is just like dodge Prism.
Classic.
Like, outside that,
they're going to be doing a good job of that now.
Yeah, has she gone? So they ended up both losing in the last round, going to X and 4. Crazily, the Wolfpack had 3 people in the top 16.
Oh, great.
Dante on Iceland made top 32.
Good for Dante. Love it.
I was somewhere. We won't talk about that.
Zach was over there.
Yeah, me and Roger was also somewhere else. His day one went rough. He went 3 and 4. He was on Prism.
Yeah.
And he felt vindicated because there were a couple of Prisms in the top 8. There were 2 Prisms that knocked our last remaining chances to make top 8 out. What's crazy is if they both won their game, we would have been 2 of the top 8 players.
That would have been sick.
The other thing
But that's how close it is in all of these cases. And sometimes you get the one wrong matchup that puts you in a different part of the world, and then all of your bets are off.
Yeah. And honestly, if my humble opinion, I think if either of them make the top 8 and they don't see the Prism in round 1 of top 8, they probably win the tournament. Because in my experience with Briar, it was not even particularly close. Yeah. And I think the Belittle version, it has some advantages into defensive Oldhim because, especially with Ice React, like the Minnowism stuff gets you extra cards.
Yeah. And
the Tome of Fandel at instant speed because the boots gets you extra cards and like you can play around certain stuff better. But I think that that version of that deck is just like, even in testing post, is very good in the Little Briar, like uncomfortable. Yeah. And there were 2 of them that almost made the top 8.
Wow, that would have been nuts. Would have come in and cleaned up.
Which is a different kind of situation, but they're still really incredible. Yeah. Like they all put in a ton of work and like it showed, and like they're super good. I feel very fortunate to play against all those players.
What is first of all, what did you do then the next day? It's Sunday, right?
I played the Battle Hardened.
Okay.
It was draft. And my general feeling on Uprising drafts, because like the weekend before I left for Europe, we were at Eric's and we did 2 drafts, and I went 6-0. Felt really good.
Yeah, it feels good.
The Covenant Road to Nationals was draft a couple weeks before that. I went 6-0 in Swiss, and then in the top 8, I was playing Drayton, and I was in a position to present Lethal, and then I scooped because he hadn't qualified for Nationals.
Right.
So I was feeling like clean on draft.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm ready. I've done this, and I had it like it's not even a concern, honestly.
Yeah.
And then it just went poorly.
And isn't it? Do you think it's something? Do you think that is just the regional and even just national meta concepts of draft change what people are taking, so that your understanding of what's happening at the table now is way harder to predict because just it's one thing whenever you've all talked about how to do draft and then you all draft together, you know what's happening because everyone has the same idea.
Yeah, I mean, I think two things. Yes. It's sort of like, what's another, like chess, when you're playing with someone that doesn't know the right move.
Yeah.
Like you go off book really quickly, and like people that memorize book stuff get uncomfortable because they're not used to the off book stuff. So, but like at the road to nats and stuff, you can, a lot of times when you have people that are not as good at drafting, it just gets easier because you have opponents that aren't as good. You have cards that are getting passed that shouldn't be getting passed.
Yeah.
Like that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But I honestly feel like, this is one thing I want to mention about like the red rakes showing up. I think the collation of the packs that were resealed, especially on day one, were not right.
Really?
Like either the box was misprinted. Like day one, the guy across from me called the judge over because there were 3 ninja and 3 wizard commons in the same pack. And
that shouldn't be...
Hypothetically, that shouldn't happen.
It's never happened before.
It should be 3/2/2.
Yeah.
Class commons. And that's one of the biggest ways you read signals.
Yeah.
Is like, if there's only one of a class common left, then someone has taken that card.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
So what happens as a result of that? Just it's a
judge comes over, is like, well, there could be misprints, so there it is. So that's interesting. And then also just like in talking with the group after that was drafting together, a lot of weird stuff going on, just in terms of how many copies of stuff. So like if you've seen 2 of something and you drafted one of them, you think that there's no more left. Then you're playing an opponent that shouldn't have one and they do have one and that kind of stuff. So it's almost like, that's why I said I out-tacked myself.
Which is, I mean, this for the spirit of draft, it is kind of nice that that it could be unpredictable. But I don't know, if it's not on purpose, maybe that's a different kind of problem.
Yeah. I think in hindsight, going into Sunday on the Battle Hardened, I was just like, I'm not going to assume any of that stuff.
Yeah.
And then in the Battle Hardened, let me get my notes out.
Yeah, how did I go?
It was a quick experience.
Just, give us a quick... Did you go get some oats or something afterwards?
No, but notably, I played an opponent from Spain and Germany in the first 2 rounds. I was on Icelander, which, I'm happy
it's your favorite?
To be. Round 1, I got a 5. It's like, hey, things are looking up. That game, I was in control the whole time. Like,
nice.
It was just was what it was. Game 2, I got paired against a Dromai. And it went very poorly.
Yeah. And you got to win out to do anything in the Battle Hardened?
Yeah. You got to go at least win your first 5 games.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the score of the game. So I drafted, did my thing, and then I was like, at this point, I'm just exhausted. I was like, I'm out. Like, I just need to... So I dropped and just went and did a very casual History Pack 1 sealed team.
Ooh.
So you have 3 people. You open a box. You build 3 decks, and then you play.
Cool.
In a sealed
I love
format.
that.
I just hung out and then went to dinner, relaxed. Meanwhile, while I was hanging out and watching and relaxing, Michael Hamilton ended up winning the Battle Hardened.
Oh, classic.
So he had just a casual 2 PTI weekend.
Wow.
Cool. So which is awesome. So then after that, we went to dinner and celebrated, and it was for the team. It was an incredible victory. My own, like looking back, I spent probably far too much time on Oldhim and Icelander, which was probably helpful to the Oldhim and Icelander players.
Yeah.
Because Briar was the most popular deck in the field. So I didn't feel bad about it in that way, but I definitely, even from a constructed standpoint, like I was not even getting practice into Prism or the Viserai match. Like,
yeah,
it was just not. I got some amount. I felt decent about it, but that's where my sideboard should have been, not
okay
the other way around.
Yeah, so I got one more fab question for you, and then I want to hold on first. Say
I've been ignoring chat.
Say hello to chat, man. Everybody's just great. I saw so many awesome comments. I can roll back through here. I very early on there was which I thought was so funny. Anyone want to take $100 bet that Zach is wearing a black shirt today? Which I just...
It would be a good bet.
Just so good. Marcus Brown, boys are back talking and playing Flesh and Blood. Sorry I was late to join. What's up, Marcus? Good to see you out there. Oxyridor, always good to see you as well. Dysphoria. Art Bassler. Art, you're great. I hope you're still around. Saying yo with a lot of hearts and missed you guys. Art, you've been like crushing it on these streams recently. It's good to see that. Bear Gardner said, thanks for the tweets over the weekend, Zach. Had a blast keeping up with you in the pack. Ryan Vorland, if there's a Pro Tour that serves only French toast, I will win it. Which that would be a devastating one for you. And not,
just be on the ground.
Not very good.
Blood sugar spike.
I see Terrence in the chat. It was good to see you, Terrence. Cardboard Cast in the chat. Everybody, great to see you. Pocknock, Blank. Has Van come in? Has the stream officially started? See Yotes Gaming, Allerdell. Everybody in here. Hope everybody's enjoyed. Floating's called David. Good to see you, Samuel. Slager, Fudginator, lots of great folks in the chat. Erica, love it, and AJ Brown. Glad to see you guys back. Excited for nuts. So just thank you guys for being here. Man, it feels good to be back. It's at this point in the work environment. It is weird not streaming during the day. It feels a little lonely. To be honest with you, it feels like I don't, what's going on. I'm doing other things, but it's like I miss that daily engagement, which is great. So we're certainly glad to be here. The question I had for you, I think it's two questions. The first question is, what's your general impression of how the top 8 landed at Pro Tour? And is it would you say it's a positive thing for the game as a whole?
I think the meta for the Pro Tour / calling that weekend was probably the best it had ever been. When you look at the hero spreads and the hero representation, and then the fact that in the top 8 you had Briar, Prism, Dash, I think, were the 3 decks that were represented, and 1 Viscerai. Pablo was on Viscerai. And then right outside the top 8 you had several Oldhams, several
Prism's still getting there, by the way. What the heck? It just can't be stopped. I mean, it's just like an inevitable, and every time everyone says Prism can't make it because of X, or Prism can't do it because of Y, and Prism's always there.
Yeah, well, I think people are getting
Dash was there,
with the fact that heroes have bad matches.
No, Dash was the other one. Yeah.
As long as it's not 0%, if it's 15, 20%.
Which, as you saw, as Briar, it's not a 0% into Briar for Prism.
No, I lost 1 game to Prism at Pro Tour New Jersey.
Yeah.
It happens, even though most of the time you win.
Yeah.
But I actually think so on Sunday in the calling top 8 or calling finals, it was Briar versus Prism.
Wow.
And Prism won.
Wow.
Which means that Prism got enough points to live in Legend. They had a ban and restricted announcement scheduled for the Tuesday after the Pro Tour.
Wow.
So Prism has officially rotated out.
Yeah.
And we're entering the national championship season. This past weekend there was a battle hardened in Columbus. And Briar was the most popular deck. There were 0 of them in the top 8. There were, I think, 3 Oldhams, 2 Dromais, 2 Icelander, and a Dash or something.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
Yeah, which is really remarkable. And either we're about to be in a very uncomfortable meta for a lot of people. I'll come back in a second. Or the best meta of all time. So the reality is that when Prism's going, Oldham and Icelander, that was their worst match.
Yeah.
By like a lot. So they show up, and they're particularly good into aggro. So then aggro has a lot harder time doing successful. Now, if aggro is down, that also means Dromai is a lot better. Dromai has a pretty good match into both Icelander and Oldham.
She's the new Prism, basically.
Yeah. It's just like a fair... I've been testing against Dromai this week, and it's like, at every turn, it's like, oh, this is Prism, but not degenerate.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, like into Oldham, right, it's really simple. Oldham doesn't have a ton of go again. So if you put 2 dragons out, does he use his attack on one of the dragons?
It's the same problem.
Yeah.
Right?
And you red rake and you put 3 little dragons out. It's like he's never attacking that.
Yeah, right. That's there forever.
Yeah. Now, if you can fall into the trap of attacking Oldham.
Yeah.
But
we've all run into that trap before.
You know the Runeblade curve where card 4 and 5 are worth way more than 1 and 2?
Yeah.
In Oldham, a lot of times, card 4 and 5 are worth 0.
Yeah.
It was the Bravo problem. Like, you were playing Ranger, and there'd be hands where you just don't attack because you don't have any arrows. It's like, oh, I can still just swing for 6.
Yeah, it's the same turn.
That's a problem.
Can you find the difference in these two pictures?
Yeah, they're the same.
One of them I'm doing 28, and one of them I'm doing 0.
So, originally people were trying to use the Ghostly Touch, and like, oh, they'll pop all the stuff, but then I'll have this really big threat and Semblance and all this stuff. But realistically, if you just block and put a bunch of stuff on the table, eventually you're going to get Chromeyes and Miragis, and then he's going to have 3 poppers in hand to like stop your turn.
Yeah.
Anyways, so Dromai gets better, and so now we're in this like weird ice meta Oldhim, Icelander, and then Dromai showing up.
And Dash still there.
And Dash still there.
Dash still there.
And the question is, like, I think you want aggro to exist and people to be able to play aggro / mid-range. And mid-range, there's a lot of decks that were almost good enough forever that are now probably good enough, honestly. Prism was also a problem for Dory.
Yeah.
Which a lot of people love, playing Dory.
But then Dromai also presents a bit of a problem for Dory.
Yeah, it's less of a problem because does the token, it's an on-hit effect, right? Mm-hmm. So, like, you can poke the dragons.
I think it is. At least most of them. I don't think it says hit a hero necessarily.
I think the new card, the Glistening, is hit a hero.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure the default, swing the sword the second time.
Just the Dawnblade? Here, I'll look at it. I can tell you for sure. Except I typed it wrong. Dawnblade. Man, it's been a long... How long has it been since I've looked at Dawnblade? If Dawnblade hits and it's the second time, put a +1 on.
Yeah. So, you can counter
forever.
And once those counters get big enough, you can kill any dragon with it. Mm-hmm. Like, that's pretty spicy. So, anyways, I think the biggest concern for me with Prism hitting Living Legend would be if Oldhim has nothing to keep him in check, and he's just the best deck, and it's, like, really tough. Because, like, Oldhim and Icelander, I appreciate, but if you play against them enough, it can get really exhausting. Because, like, all the fun stuff that you want to do in the game is not really possible.
Yeah, it's just a grinder.
Yeah. And I think that existing, it's really fine balance. This whole, like, the whole meta triangle or circle or whatever it is. Because, like, you need some check against pure aggro, but you also need some check against pure control. And Prism was the biggest check by a lot.
So what I'm hearing you say is it's time for Dory access.
Maybe. Yeah, I mean...
you want to grind? I'll grind.
You can imagine, though, with the sword, right? It's like, if you give me enough dragons to target, is her ability is also just on hit, right?
Yeah, first time you hit, you can attack an additional time with the weapon.
Even the stuff that's like, if it hits, you get go again. Kind of stuff.
Dory's back, man.
Yeah, so if you can just clear 2 dragons and get a token on Dawnblade, it's like...
Yeah, when your weapon attack hits.
And, like, if you stack up tokens and all you need to do is hit to keep your tokens...
Yeah.
And they have 1 dragon out, you just poke it, and you can keep your 4 tokens on it. If you don't draw your go again.
Do they pivot into a no dragon list against Dory? Heralds, or not even heralds, what can you send? The weird ones, Shimmers of Surreality, that kind of stuff? Or?
I mean, they have, like, the Dunebreaker.
Oh, the Cinnabites and stuff.
They have the Spears of Surreality. They have... they can technically play standard attacks, Scar for a Scar, Snatch, etc.
You could get weird.
Yeah. But all that to say, I feel like what we're seeing, a lot of people are concerned about the Oldhim meta. And I am 0% in this is a defined conclusion. I just think you have to adjust. You actually have a living meta that's evolving, even without a set coming out.
Yeah.
So
let's not forget the Brutes. They've got 6s. They've got double attacks off Scabs, if not 3 off of Go Again. All right.
Yeah.
Bring on this new meta. I welcome it.
So I think it's cool to have new puzzles to solve. And then obviously they did the announcement this past week about Dynasty, the new set coming out. It's worth mentioning on that. They changed the MSRP.
They did, yes.
We changed our subscription.
It's basically map, just a little bit more expensive. What did they change the MSRP to? Did you see that?
It's like 110.
Changed it to 110.
Up from like 99 or whatever. It's like 109.
So 80% of that is the new subscription price. So all subscribers are automatically updated. You'll get an email about that officially today as well, because we always want to let you know anytime that price changes. But it's still map. It's still the same convention. They just changed the pricing on their end.
Yeah. And the... What was it? Oh, so we're going to have a new set coming out in November, but that's post-Worlds. So we have National Championships coming up, and then we have World Championship. And Briar is pretty close to Living Legend.
Yeah.
Which is notable because Rosetta Thorn also goes with her.
Thank goodness. Are we going to clear out of like all of the Oops All Ruined Blades meta fragments?
I mean, we're not far away from just having old Viscerai.
Does Vis go back to Nebula Blade at that point? And the maybe Side and the Scythe?
So I was back in Vegas last year. I was on Reaping Blade because there's one resource swing.
Yeah.
The anti-healings, whatever. It's just 1 for 3. So you can kind of mimic the same thing. You just don't get the split damage.
Yeah.
Which makes some matchups tougher.
Yeah.
Notably.
I will love that, though. Yeah. I will love that.
So I'm I'm curious to see how it works out. We're going to have a ton of national championships, a lot of data coming in. But as a competitive player, it definitely is exciting. Yeah. Like, there's just constantly new decks. And you even feel like you're torn because there's decks that I want to explore, like Dromai. But at the same time, you need to figure out how to play the heroes you're good with into the new stuff. Like, I've been working on the Icelander Oldhim meta for 2 months. Mm-hmm. Because I was just getting smashed around by the team on those decks. Man,
I really kind of love that. It feels very much like a fighting game in that way, like a video game. Like in Smash Brothers, you play the same thing, but you might figure out how to play against your friend who has switched to X, Y, or Z, rather than totally reinventing the wheel every time a meta shift happens. Like that is very encouraging. I got some questions. So we asked on the social for any questions. Pre-stream thoughts. So here's some questions for you. First of all, Art Bassler here, also here on Twitter, missed y'all's faces. Didn't have a question, just wanted to say so. Art,
what up?
The bastion of positivity, thank you very much. Zero Expectations on Twitter also said, no thoughts, just a heartfelt whoop of joy. So I'd love to see that. Let's start here with the Lazy Dog. What was the best meal you had in France?
In France particularly? Mm-hmm. In Paris, I was talking about that, like having water in the desert. There was a cafe called Seasons that was relatively close to where we were staying. And they had a thing on their menu called Double Trouble. It was avocado toast with a salad and acai with freaking like granola and fruits and stuff. And they brought me like an entire liter of water.
Tap water?
No
or
idea.
Sparkly water?
It was regular water.
Bottled water?
Yeah, I'm not that fancy.
Dude, it's hard to get tap water in Paris for me.
Literally, I was just so happy to have water.
I was literally told, like, from the toilet.
The tap water?
Yeah.
Yeah, well.
They were like, do you want sparkling or do you want, like, the other option? And then it was like, do you have tap water?
Like, ladle it in.
You mean, like, from the toilet? Because, like, obviously, we deserve to be told that at the time, though.
Get off my lawn.
Did you pick up any French?
No.
How was the interactions there? Language? Well, obviously Paris is like, everybody's going to be multilingual or at least aware of the fact that there's so many English speakers around. But
yeah, they
were Lille?
They were really nice about it. Lille was less French. It was French, but it was like you could definitely. I mean, Paris, I think, is just like big city France, right? So there was a little bit of I don't even remember it now, but it's basically like, do you speak English?
Parlez-vous anglais?
Yeah, s'il vous plaît, that kind of stuff. Like just little stuff that you need. I forget what it was. There's a word for water.
There sure is. If you can believe it.
Yeah, I will say I got bamboozled by Google Translate. So you can download languages.
Yeah.
So you should be able to translate offline, and that just didn't work at all. And that's a very common thing to actually have happen.
That's a Google special right there.
Yeah.
A lot of great ideas.
I was like taking a picture of the menu to translate it so that I could like pick it and then rehearse what I was saying and like it would read it to you so you know how to say it and not look like an idiot. Mm-hmm. Didn't work at all.
Wow, that's a bummer. You have to point on the menu?
Just sometimes, yeah. But most of the time, in the larger groups at least, I was happy to not be the worst French-speaking person. I'd watched some videos and like, here's how you say certain things. So I never felt that bad.
I'm glad. I really think it's important to do your best to like honor and respect the language of the place.
Yeah.
Everyone appreciates that.
I don't want to be like a snooty Americano.
You should speak my language. Yeah. I'm on your turf. 0 to 65. Merci. Would be cool to hear about your guys' thoughts as competitive players in a store about online play versus in-person. So you just went to a giant competitive in-person event. You've been playing a lot on TTS and webcam for testing, I know, leading up to the event. Give me a kind of a poetic take on in-person versus online?
Well, let me find it. What's the link? I don't know the name of the website. So part of where I think this question is coming from is a new website popped up recently.
Oh, yeah?
It's like called Fab Online or something like that.
Like a Gentech-y kind of thing?
Kinda. You can play
a browser-based?
A browser-based way to play Fab.
It's handy.
And this is a side story. So then there's also a deck builder called like Fabrary. Like library with
Fabrary, yeah.
And so I recently discovered this. Apparently Matt Folks was doing this, the guy that won the Pro Tour. You can play Fab Online on the browser, and you can import decks from FabDB and or Fabrary. And we tried it this week for the first time, like just to see how the platform worked, because the Fab TCG Twitter community has been all about this.
Okay.
Like since the Pro Tour. Like,
yeah.
It is the conversation. Is it good? Is it bad? Is it good for the game? Is it bad for the game?
Netrunner kind of went through that.
And it goes deeper than just the fact that you can play online. So poetically, I think playing online is way worse than playing with paper. Playing webcam is like secondary to playing in person. Playing in person is the best. It's beyond even the romantic experience of it too. It's little stuff like I play way worse online because like I don't track things as well. I can't see how many cards are in your hand as easy. Like it's just like a less of a flow that you get into, and it's more mechanical because you have to operate this stuff. But anyways, so if you import your deck from February into this way of playing online, which I will say, like it takes way less bandwidth than TTS. A lot of computers can play it that don't.
I mean, anything that can do TTS is the worst for all of these options.
Yeah.
It just in terms of like I had an older laptop that could not run tabletops. It just couldn't load all the objects.
You could play the new one,
but I could jam 1,000 games of Jinteki Netrunner without any issue.
One of the upsides of it is it makes you honor every window in the game.
Yeah, true.
Which is nice to understand how that works, but. If you import from February, this was crazy. I played my first game, it got done. I hadn't imported from February because I never used that deck, by the way. But you get done and it has stats.
Average damage per turn or that kind of thing.
Yeah, it also has, for every card in your deck, how many times you play it, how many times you pitch it, how many times you block with it.
God, that's so handy for that.
Also, how many cards from each hand were left over.
Should never be any.
Well, and it takes away the arsenal card, right?
Yeah.
So it's like 0.44, right? But you want to get that to like 0.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
There's different stats, right? If you import it from February, it actually associates those stats with your deck list. So you could play 100 games with a deck, and you could see in every specific matchup.
That's very tantalizing to me.
How often did you pitch a card, play a card, block with a card?
Why do I like that so much?
Yeah, well, it's because it's just robotically master efficiency, right?
But I'm supposed to be the romance guy.
Yeah. Well, apparently not. You're a systems guy, you know what I mean?
I'm a romantic robot, man.
Yeah. Twitter bio, the romantic robot. But that's another flavor text for a card game.
Yeah,
right? I'm the romantic robot. But Magic actually had this problem in that metas, because they have so many people playing online, and the stats and the win rates and all that kind of stuff get shared. And you can even look at like, how often does this hero win in this matchup when this card's in the deck?
Wow.
And like, there's a lot of different stuff there that's pretty crazy. So you can very quickly start seeing like, is Promise of Playing actually good in Briar? It's like you have enough people playing 10,000 games get reported. You're going to get some sort of data going, right?
Yeah.
So Magic apparently had this problem because the data was actually their websites that reporting in data from Magic Online and analyzing it, and like they could robotically figure out the meta.
Yeah.
Because there's just enough inputs and enough data going on.
Yeah.
Like with 99% confidence, this is the optimal version of this deck for this hero. Given all the other meta and all the other variables. And there's human stuff to that, and it's not always going to be perfect. But I think that's one of the concerns going around right now in the greater community is just not just can you play this online, but is access to this kind of data useful, like healthy or not?
Yeah, because that's always the thing though. Like there is no restricting that. Do you want 8 players to have access to it because they can spend 20 hours a day grinding and collecting that data and winning tournaments, or do you want everybody to have access to it?
If you're doing it in paper, it's a lot harder to collect all that data.
Yeah, the
digital version of it makes it easy to collect the data. So then all you need is the time to jam the games. So that's a whole.
Yeah, it's like, well, yeah, you can't. I've always it's like, is it healthy to be able to download free MP3s? You know, is it healthy? It's going to happen. Like it's an unstoppable. You can't. What are you going to do? Tell them they can't have the client, and then it goes private, and then everybody who has the money to pay for it can use it and win tournaments instead. Yeah,
and the thing about that though is that would hypothetically be illegal. So like,
good luck proving it.
If you're using the cards and the images and the text and all that stuff, and
but it's not online. I mean, you could just private client download to your computer and play over a local connection or whatever. I mean, there's a million ways to make this work.
I'm not touching any of that, but yeah, point of it is like we've been in a phase of Fab where like that's not been available at all, that kind of data, and so whether or not it's good or bad, it's coming. And like,
yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's the internet, man.
Here we are. Yeah.
What are you gonna do?
Yeah.
I like Tourist Idiot. That's so on brand. It's Moneyball for Fab. That's why you like it.
So it is funny. It is kind of Moneyball.
So true, though.
Just put the stuff in the machine.
Yeah, and just see what happens. Yeah.
But in general, I think what I would say, I have a bigger concern than that. I think giving people access to play the game is good. I don't think online play actually is harmful. Because I know a ton of people that can't make it out to league nights, that can't go to local tournaments, that can play at 10 p.m. on a Saturday night for a couple games. They get to take part in a community. I know some people that can't afford to have the cards, so playing online is a way. I still think it's always better to play across the table from people, personally. So physical cards in person is like the ideal way to experience it. That's not going to go away just because people can play online, in my opinion. That said, I do think there is a concern, I've seen this a lot, and part of it was the Blitz being a part of Worlds conversation sparked a lot of this for me, which is you have a game that I believe was built for tournaments. Like, Fab is such a great tournament game. It's unreal. But just in talking with people even now from all over the world, I'm a little concerned that like it's getting, like it's too competitive, or like that's the only option. And that worked I've seen this with a lot of the FFG's games, that works for a second. And they were never as competitive as this.
Or as big.
But like if your emphasis is on tournaments so hard, it's a very digestible format for people to know what's going on at an event or at a game or whatever. But the skill of the good players is getting very high. So it can be rough if you're in a meta with 5 or 6 really good players that are always winning everything, and like it's not good for anybody because they're not going to have as much fun if your skill gap's down. You look at something like Magic, and I think a huge part of their success is Friday Night Magic. I think it's Commander. We're about to go into a set that doesn't have limited, which is kind of the great equalizer. Like you can kind of have a great time playing limited with anybody.
I feel like you can be super competitive on the backside if you do have that limited release valve on the front side.
And they have obviously the Commander format and like a whole Friday night vibe where people just hang out and play in a way that isn't as competitive.
And you know what? You know what's crazy? Robert bought the card. It's really a beautiful story. Honestly, it would work itself well into a documentary or a the Covenant book 15 years from now. But Robert, in the early days of Covenant, had to sell off his like favorite Magic decks to make enough money, to live.
To have money to supplement the lack of not,
because we didn't have any money when we were building the business. And he has made the decision to rebuy those cards and rebuild those decks. Which is a lot of money. And I don't think they've gotten cheaper over time, because it was all like Urza, like 95, and like it was all like early Magic stuff. So he did that, and then he has them now at his house. He's got 4 decks, I think 5, one for each color, that are you can just sit down and play. And so like I look at him at his house, and I remember like the very early when I bought that eBay lot and saw my first Magic cards. Never really got into it, but played those games with Josh really early on. It was really fun. And then they've got this Jumpstart format now. They're so good. And Jonathan brought this to our attention too, is like what Magic is so good at doing is just constant onboarding. Spellslingers is onboarding. All of the Jumpstart, the Commander, they've got 20 different types of packs now, which I think is insane.
They also have like a lot of times they'll have
the
free
secret layer stuff
that stores have.
The precons, like the little precons that are quite good. So they're just onboarding constantly because they know that churn is always happening on the back end of that. And I was thinking to myself, like, man, Jumpstart is like the perfect format for me. Like you literally open 2 packs, shuffle them together, and play a game.
I mean, it's like Soulforge, right?
Yeah. And so you've got that, and it's like when you start looking at where's the release valve on Fab for these kinds of things? Where's the Jumpstart? Where's the Commander? Where's the PvE? There's no really, and History Pack I think is just like, I can't talk enough about, I won't say what I actually think about that product because
you don't like it.
It's so bad. I think it's really awful. However, none of these new things that have come out, even the classic battles, none of it is really designed at that early lizard brain onboarding, everybody on equal footing, let's go. And that is, I think your concern is valid for that reason, because everything is moving more and more in that, oh, now we got online things and now the stats are there. And so now that gets even more heavily tweaked. So where is that 80% chunk of people who don't really want to go to Pro Tour France?
Yeah.
And I think that's a really good question. I mean, that's a great thing for them to kind of solve for.
And, I think they came out swinging and were focused on that pillar, right? The tournament, the Pro Tour, the event series. And I think that was a really huge opening for them because specifically of what Magic was and wasn't doing.
And they nailed it.
At the time, yeah. And we know they're working on a PvE version of the game. I think an RPG focused, pick a character, pick your gear, go on raids, upgrade your gear, find a special sword, do that whole thing. I think that could be very profound for this game. And you even see at the Pro Tour 1, Pro Tour 2, the participation promo was Yorick the Bard, the young hero who's only playable in multiplayer.
Yeah.
And
or maybe soon in the actual one. Did you see that? The instrument is apparently... I heard musings about this, so it might not be true at all. But the instrument was pointing to maybe the fact that there's a playable bard hero on the way or something.
Really?
Yeah. If anyone knows anything about that, let me know.
I mean, the brother was on about for France was the loot.
Yeah. What does the loot say?
When ye approach the evening, no, I'm just kidding. There's actually that kind of version on one side, and the other side is normal. Let me find it real quick.
Yeah, I like this too. This is another side of this equation, though. So Allerdale's saying, I see an issue with embracing competitive play too much, but to be honest, I would prefer that problem over the current casual problem my area has with Magic. Yeah. So apparently it has a casual problem where maybe everyone's playing too casually, and you might want to be a good Magic player, and you can't find competitive games.
And that's the tough balance to strike, right? Because I think what's going to become clear is the people that are capable of competing at a high level it's going to become known. And there's a lot of people that I think are finding out how hard it is to be at that level and stay at that level. Like it's uncomfortable how much time it actually takes. And so I think you want to have a place for people to fall that understand they're not going to be at that level and or learn they're not at that level, so they can keep enjoying the game. And there was a ton of side events at the event. I think they do a good job of that. Like, it would be really cool to see someone's perspective going to something like Worlds not in the tournament. Because I think some of the people having the most fun at those events are not in the main event.
Sure.
Like, not even close. Side note, on the Hummingbird, Call of Adventure is the name of his...
Pretty cool.
His weapon. When cometh thou turn, pick a tail, quick and be bold, or drawn and quartered, or health be good ye all.
Okay, so it's coax a commotion, basically.
Yeah, so I think you literally
draw a card, gain a health,
or get a quicken token. And I think you give both players that thing.
Yeah, okay.
Or all players. So hypothetically...
There was something about the number on it, or there was something about it that made Bard people like, hey, don't know if that's true. You know what, though? Let's just... I'm going to actually mark this on the time code in case it matters, but let's devil's advocate ourselves on this, because I think this is too easy to just fall into the same old thinking about everything has to be a certain kind of way, and that casual play is what saved Magic or can let it continue to be a force. Because this is a really good point by Fudginator. These games are not designed to be casual. Strictly.
100%.
And I think that's true. This is a head-to-head competitive card game. It's like, when was the last time you heard somebody say, like, well, the reason chess is so successful is because there's all these casual formats. It's like, no. Chess is designed, you're trying to be the best chess player in your area, certainly in your world.
But I do think there's a comparable in, like, Smash Brothers, right? Or the fighting games. Where, like, I can play Mortal Kombat and not... There's tournaments for Mortal Kombat.
Yeah.
To be sure. That said, I also think from a brand product positioning standpoint...
Is there, though? I mean, is there casual Mortal Kombat? Is there casual Smash Brothers? There's not, though.
I mean, casual in a sense that, like, I don't have to compete at Worlds to play Smash Brothers.
Yeah, but it's only fun. I mean, Smash Brothers against somebody who's way better than you is not good.
No, it's not.
So in that way, it's the same thing we're talking about here with Fab.
Yep.
But why are there so many people continuing to play Smash Brothers even though you'll get wrecked by somebody way better than you? Is it because you're aspiring to be good at the game?
I think most of the time it's because you find people in Smash Brothers that are to play with socially that are on a similar wavelength. And then also, like, it's multiplayer.
Yeah.
So if there's one person that's really good and 3 people that are okay, they learn that pretty quickly.
And they just gang up on it.
And it's like, well, we're going to take
Which is the commander. The commander kind of creates that same paradigm at the table.
100%.
Yeah. It is interesting, though. Like, you can't, I mean, it's not like you can play casual Tekken. You know what I mean? Like, casual has nothing to do with the publisher. It's just, did you find the group of people that all are taking this at the same level of seriousness as you? And can you thread the needle of nobody getting too much better than anybody else?
I think when I talk about this, right, to me, casual support is not have tournaments that are casual tournaments, because you're already defeating the purpose to me. Like, casual is going to happen at the kitchen table no matter what you do.
Right.
But it's making sure you're releasing cards and giving people the opportunity to play this in that way. That's what they want, right? Yeah. So that's where I do think a solo mode, like a video game, you can play most fighting video games solo. And you can practice solo. And if you're not ready to play against humans, right, that are good at it, you don't have to.
Yeah.
You never have to go
and you can
there.
Still have a good time.
Or if you have the one friend that you play with, like, you don't have to go to a tournament. But it's not like, hey, participation promos for some casual event weekly that's happening. Yeah. I don't think it's how that works.
Yeah, totally. And like David Vegel, good to see you, David. You're basically saying, I play casual chess all the time. And like, we did an old school video about this with Netrunner. Like casual is a total myth.
I remember that.
Because everybody's playing to win the game.
Yeah, of course.
If you're pitching a casual format as, we want you to play this game, but like don't care about winning very much, it doesn't work. Yeah. And that's what we mean by this doesn't work in a one-on-one competitive game like chess or anything else. When's the last time you had a casual chess tournament?
That doesn't happen.
It can't.
But that's also where I think if you can successfully pull off a PvE mode for Fab, it's huge. Yeah. Because changing it from we're trying to defeat each other to we're trying to defeat that thing, suddenly I can play the bard that shuffles your decks together. Yeah. And like, it's kind of silly.
And I can use the cards.
Yeah, same with the Dynasty announcement. We got, I don't know if we have this card pop or not.
I think we do.
Where's he at? It's fine. I'm Emperor. The Emperor of Drakai.
The Emperor of Drakai? I think we have that.
Yeah. Nice. So he's a young hero. He's our first multi. Did you notice he's a warrior wizard?
Zach, I got to tell you, I have so much to say about that.
Yes, we hit the salt mine. Let's go. All right, Emperor Drakai Evader. Let's 4 intellect, 15 health. He's a young hero. He's royal, which is a new type.
That's cool.
Draconic, warrior, wizard, hero, young. You may only have red cards in your deck. Yeah. He has an action, pay 3, search your deck for Command and Conquer, attack with it, then shuffle. So paying 3, presuming that you only have red cards in your deck, means that you're pitching 3 to search your deck for a CNC and play it. Yeah. That's what he does. Yeah. Most importantly, though, we have...
He has royal cards.
He has royal cards. He has warrior cards. He has wizard cards. He has draconic cards. He also is a legendary from Dynasty. The big L.
It's important. Wasn't there some weird quote about he's super rare? Or like there's a super rare version?
Yeah. So apparently there's a distribution company in Canada called Prince Distribution. They have since taken this post down, but it's public information. So here we are, saying that a few things they announced about Dynasty. It's good to know. I think there are 5 legendaries in this set. The previous supplemental sets, remember the first one we got the reprint of Tunic and what was the other? Oh, Shiana, young hero. That was Crucible. And then in Everfest, we got Stalagmite, and then we got the reprint of Arknight Skullcap, and then we got Silver Palms. Remember that heater?
Speaking of the salt mine.
Yeah.
My gosh.
But that kind of plays to my point of like, I just don't think they're there yet. Clearly, these cards, even the Emperor, I don't necessarily think he will be super playable in Blitz.
With that horn, he will be.
We'll come back in a second. We'll see. But like Silver Palms to me, the Merchant class, and even Shiana to a certain extent, specifically Yorick the Bard, like this is clearly pointing to a PvE multiplayer solo mode that is not just about you can play it most efficient deck, do the best, but I think you can also play it. This is just my character. Like when you roll up an RPG for a character, some people like I want to be the warrior and I want to be the best I can be. Another I prefer at this point when I'm playing an RPG is like
broken leg.
I want to be something I'm not.
Yeah.
So maybe I'm like an older woman and like you know whatever.
I don't know. You get closer by the game. You got that card.
I got that card again. Yeah. Anyways, point is, I think there's seeding cards that even all the potions and stuff. I'm like, anyways, all that to say, I was really happy to see 5 legendaries. Because legendaries you're not going to see all the time, but with only 2 or 3 in the set, there's not that many. So it very much doesn't make sense to open boxes. It makes more sense to buy singles. The other thing is, it gives you more space to put cards like Silver Palms. If Silver Palms had been in and there were 4 other legendaries to possibly be trying to get, it would feel less bad.
Yeah.
To me,
it would feel less bad if it was actually a even remotely usable card.
I still don't know
in
why
any
it's
other
not playable
context.
in every
It just at least make it playable.
But what are your thoughts on the Emperor? So it's a warrior wizard.
Well, I just thought. So what does a warrior wizard entail, right? That means you have the strengths of a warrior with magic. How is that not a rune blade? This has got to be the greatest trolling situation on Earth. Is that somehow we get another rune blade that is marketed as not a rune blade, but that's exactly what the class is supposed to represent. Magic and martial prowess. Am I wrong about that?
I mean, it is...
What's the difference between a warrior wizard and a rune blade?
It's a little bit different.
I mean, you know, you're if you think about the card, you know, you're casting spells. Rune blade isn't really doing that, I guess. They're doing more like dark visceri stuff.
Well, and visceri, but Briar's not really...
Briar's not really casting anything, is she?
I mean, I think they have weapons, usually they're magical, that are doing some amount of...
Is it just magical weapons? Is that their deal?
I think that's their deal. I think that's also why the weapons are rune blade, not elemental rune blade, or... Their thing is their weapons.
Yeah.
Which warrior is about weapons, but all their cards support the weapons. Whereas Runeblade doesn't have the weapon support cards.
It's the rune chance.
Yeah.
Yeah, no real salt there.
They have the non-attack
actually.
action.
But the actual question though is like, how many silos are we gonna end up with here?
So I always thought they would do multi-class. Cause like,
what's the difference between multi-class and talent?
So talent is obviously it's another silo, but like talent is a mechanically different way to interact with a game, not just a part of the color pie specifically.
So it's basically a second layer of how. So a class is going to tell you what part of the color pie you're in, and then the talent is going to tell you how you're mechanically making that part of the color pie happen.
Yeah, because you can have a talent applied to any of the classes, right? So the way in which a Runeblade messes with like Shadow, the banish, or let's say Light, the soul. It's like the way a warrior messes with the soul or utilizes the soul should feel a lot different than like a Runeblade.
Right.
Or an illusionist or whatever the case may be. So I like the...
It's the macro layer.
Yeah, you just have
these
layers.
Are also, yeah, these are all not really problems.
And there's ways to mix them. And even if you think about... Really, though, if you think about combining wizard and warrior cards, like... What sticks out? Like, how,
yeah. It's
kind of anti-synergistic.
And honestly, it is really cool. Honestly, it's the coolest thing, man.
Yeah. Well, in this case, it's only the reds, too, right?
You got a sword, and you got a zap, and a
kind of does both, right?
Yeah.
And I think you will have some characters that do this kind of a thing. And I think there are some combinations that would be fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, actually, it turns out I have no problem with this at all. You've talked me off any fake ledge that I could have created.
And I think classes
for entertainment.
Probably the most important part of classes are the armor and the weapons that are available.
Yeah.
So, wizard's a weird one to start with.
But then you have... it would be one thing if only classes got equipment and then talents don't. But like, isn't Huska's Shadow, right? Shadow chest. Mm-hmm. So, talents are also bringing in equipment. Classes are bringing in equipment. Talents are...
We've yet to see a talent bringing a weapon.
Yeah.
And usually the class...
It makes sense, too.
The class equipment is more limited. Or the talent equipment.
Mm-hmm.
So like the class equipment is pretty foundational and available to all, and then like the talent is very specific.
Yeah. That's so. What do you think about it? First of all, read the Imperial Warhorn here.
Yeah. So, well, I'll come back to that. Imperial Warhorn, red, 2 cost, generic action item.
And so you've got to spend 2 and take an action to play the thing down.
Yep. And then later you can spend an action and a resource.
With no go again.
Destroy the Warhorn. Choose any number of heroes. Each of them chooses an ally, aura, item, or landmark permanent they control. Destroy each permanent chosen this way. If you are royal, instead you choose the permanents.
So you can destroy an aura on the board. You can destroy an ally.
Yep.
You can destroy a landmark.
Yep.
Or you can destroy an item.
Mm-hmm.
You know, is the only place Fab can go as you kind of expand the design over long periods of time is more interaction with permanent things on the board? I mean, how many times can you make a scar for a scar, you know?
Hopefully a lot. I mean, I think you give yourself a lot of layers because you have all the classes, which we've seen this all the time. It's like, what does the fundamental basic, there probably is one. Scar for Scar is not the basic. What was the one we said in Fab Foundations?
Wounding Blow.
There's a basic attack.
0 for 4, defense for 3.
Yeah, it's just like vanilla. And then every class probably has that vanilla attack that is a little different based on the class.
Yeah, like Bolton's got it, and Illuminate 0 for 4, hits goes to Soul.
That's a perfect example. Is it block for 3 or 2?
3.
Yeah, so that is literally that card.
That's the exact
and that's
card.
the light version. That's not even Warrior.
That's just light.
Yeah, Warrior's weird because they didn't attack.
Yeah, Warrior's weird.
They're just doing their thing.
Cards for 3 value, man.
Yeah.
If you're looking for that, come on over to Warrior.
Anyway, so you have all these levers, and then you have the talents, which is a different pool. And then you can mix and match those. But then the heroes are very important to this whole conversation. I think a huge part of why they added the weapons to Living Legend with the heroes is Luminaris with Prism. Like the problem with the illusion of class right now, beyond the keyword spectra,
right,
which I do not like, is Luminaris.
Yeah,
you take Luminaris away, and that entire card pool is totally different.
Fundamentally different. Yeah.
So I think the other secret they have is the heroes specifically and the weapons that they have. And now that they've attached the two on like a Living Legend thing, are like game changing.
Yeah.
The right Runeblade comes along, like Guardian comes along, the right talent, whatever comes along, and suddenly, same here, where like you might have 2 card pools that right now aren't that good, or heroes for them aren't good enough. But you release a new hero that can use those 2 pools and it's designed to use them. And that's just like an interesting way to use all the same stuff.
I mean, it's true. And then if it Living Legends out, like you might not see one for a while.
Yep.
But you're starting to see the game in its early maturity and how there's a lot of people that would disagree with this. Welcome to the
hot
earth.
Take. Mark me.
But I will. I'll mark you and me at the same time. Now that we're seeing the end game of this, we've seen Living Legends start to move and start to change things. And we've seen the silos starting to being brought together, Warrior, Wizard, new Royal talent, et cetera, et cetera. You really do get the sense that the foundation is really strong for like forever. That it doesn't, you know how usually at this point in a game where we're playing Game of Thrones, we're playing even X-Wing at that point.
It's like dense.
It's just like, this has nowhere to go.
Yeah.
And like the way that it's been bolted on along the way is starting to feel too big that it's just about to fall over. Fab actually feels like it's now just playing in the playground it's created.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like it's about to fall over like that, which is really impressive. I think there was a lot of doubts about Living Legend, about siloing all these cards, about the introduction of talents like they were. I had a lot of those questions. And now that you start to see it, it's like, wait a minute. So, I mean, tomorrow you could release 8 heroes and your game, you don't have to print any additional cards and your meta game goes bananas.
Yeah. And then at that point, even if the cards in the sets are very similar or interchangeable with old cards, that's actually kind of good for new players. You can just buy the new stuff and you're kind of in a weird parity.
Yeah.
But at that point, is the limited experience good? And there's a million ways to combine a limited experience that's fun, even with very similar cards. because we haven't seen these two classes together or this talent with these classes involved. And that the combination of limited sets that this game could put out is like...
It already is probably in the 20 plus years.
Forever, yeah.
When you look at like all the different combinations that can happen.
Yeah, and you stop printing stuff, right? And so like we were here at the beginning and we've been collecting the whole time, but like you can imagine in 10 years from now, like Elemental Guardian may not have been seen for 5 years. Like it was crazy.
Yeah. Maybe some Earth cards came out. Maybe there's a new element suddenly.
I mean, I'm a little sad that we're not getting another set with Earth cards in it before Briar probably is going to hit Living Legend.
She's gone, man.
I've been like, oh, we need more Earth cards, but we'll see.
You've always got Earth Oldhim, that can... Of course, he's on the chopping block too. And, the speed in which these things are happening, they can tweak around the edges on this. But actually seeing the system start to look... You know what it is? It looks sustainable. This actually looks like a sustainable, long-term, competitive meta system. I've never seen that before.
Which is amazing.
Without banning, without rotating chunks off.
Yep. You're just losing a hero, right?
Huh.
And I think that someone was asking me this on Twitter, was how do I feel about the pace of Living Legend heroes happening and like how fast it's going. And to expand on that a little bit, my answer was I think 15-ish to 20 heroes is about the right number from a classic constructed testing meta, the whole thing. Once you get past 20, it would just be almost impossible. So you just kind of pick your deck and hope
it's good. Yeah.
But I think they're at a point now where like with the seasons and the year and the structure, and one of my other big hopes is that they announce the OP structure for 2023 earlier.
Yeah.
And I think this year was like, there's a lot to get done. Even now, there's like 30 or 40 national championships. Like, that's 30 or 40 venues that have to get booked, and event scheduling and staff and marketing, and like, before you even can announce the national championship season.
Yeah.
That's a lot to wrangle. Anyways, so my hope is that what we see is heroes falling off the Living Legends list at about the pace we're getting new heroes.
Yeah.
And you flex up to 18 or 19. And it's going to depend, like how long a hero's around. Starvo was clearly too good. He went fast. Prism lasted like over a year and 3 or 4 months.
Yeah.
And some heroes have been around since the start. Like Bravo's still with us. He's on year 3. And my hope is that once Briar's out of here, Vis will finally have his time to shine and also not get something banned immediately.
Yeah.
Yeah. Finally, I was playing him for a year. Finally, he's the best deck. And they're like, you know what? Skeleton's probably too good.
It was.
It was.
And it was.
Anyways.
Do you think that... do you have a point to finish there? Because
I was going to say, I think the maturity, it's a clever system, and it wasn't perfect. Like, I think the amount of points they gave during some seasons was too much, and they fixed that. I think not having the weapons go away, they realized that very quickly. Like, oh, if the weapon's the problem, we can't get rid of it.
Yeah.
So how are we going to deal with that? But it does feel like they're kind of hitting the stride. The other thing I was going to mention about the limited was I still am not a huge fan of the every other set being supplemental.
Yeah.
And I think part of that is because I know how important it is as an onboarding opportunity. Every time there's draft sets, new players play the game. Like, I've seen that over and over, and the supplemental set, crickets. Like, it's
easy. Yeah.
Totally different. So, what were we going to say?
And I have to imagine they sell better, right? Because it's like it's a product you can continue to use past your collection. Like, even right now, we were talking about maybe grabbing an Uprising box to play some Sealed on stream. We can't do that with Everfest.
Yeah.
Like, what are we going to do with Everfest? Open it?
Yeah. Get some potions.
Boring. Yeah, get some potions. Back to this kind of one-on-one competitive thing. Rather than taking cues from what's been done previously and thinking that there needs to be this commander style format for Fab or this jumpstart format for Fab, they really could just go where Magic currently isn't and just have PvE and hugely competitive PvP tournaments and organized play. Because, like, man, if they did that PvE thing really well, if they did PvE in a way that it made me want to buy a booster box to get stuff for my character.
Yep. Or buy singles or whatever.
That would be unbelievable.
Well, and I don't know, it kind of writes itself, but you always talk about playing WoW, and you were the dwarf, and you were trying to get... What kind of mount was it?
I was a gnome trying to get a dwarf mount.
Yeah, there it is. A gnome trying to get a dwarf mount.
Yeah, and I was grinding for
and,
like
you finally
winter
got
cloth
that
or whatever
mount.
For like 2,000 years.
And like it was like this crazy thing. So like, I don't know. I think there's fun ways to do PvE, even leaning into the booster pack scenario, that there are things you can win or earn PvE-wise, story-wise, or paths you can go with characters and tell stories and reinforce the lore in that RPG way. Like they mentioned that a few times where like you choose a character, you have your class, your talent, your equipment, your weapon, you're building it out.
It's right there.
Like but it's distinctly different than just PvP casually.
Definitely. And you could so easily do a limited version of PvE, right? It's like, okay, let's say we sit down at a table, you and I, we get 6 packs each. We open them, we build a hero out of those decks, and then we play the limited encounter. Right?
I mean, imagine, it's just so easy. You have a PvE campaign, right? And it's like, oh, here's how you start. You can do solo, you can do multiplayer, whatever. You get 1 booster box.
Yeah.
Out of that box, you're going to build 1 to 4 decks, or however many heroes are in that thing. And that's what you have to work with. You got to share the generics. You got to figure that out. This is like stuff that your party has together. It's like, I have this Warhorn, right?
Yeah.
Well, who gets the Warhorn? And you start from there, and then like, I don't know, it's kind of cool. You can add to that in a non-own everything kind of way too.
Yeah. And then you have Classic Battles box that is like 2 heroes against something. You release that as your starter product, and then you have your pre-constructed, it's just like...
I think it could be a big deal.
It could be a really big deal.
I remember when James was on the podcast, I think they're taking that very seriously.
Yeah.
In like we want to create a phenomenal game, not just bolt this on.
Yeah, which is what Ashes had to do too. Is it was like we kind of looked at just kind of tossing this in, but like we have to like think about how to do this well.
Yeah, I think that could be revolutionary for the game. But were it me too, like I think their bread and butter right now is their event OP structure, tournaments. It's an incredible game for that.
And if you just lean into
that's not the experience you're looking for, Fab's probably not it right now. But I do think PvE might change that, which is cool.
I wanted to hit up this comment by Bear Gardner on the online side of things, which I think is quite relevant. It said, online options are game changers for me. My illness means in-person play will be immensely rare, but online play makes you feel like I can be a part of it all, at least until I find some webcams for the UK time zone. But that is also another piece of it, is like, it's not zero-sum. It's not that people who would play online and maybe buy more packs or whatever now just play or offline, play online instead. There's a whole new audience of people that you open up to and that can be a part of this community by having those online play options. And so I wanted to read that comment from Bear because it's another part of that conversation with online, that it's not about just tweaking the stats and stuff. It's about like people can play this game for the first time because of that being introduced, which is really relevant.
100%. And they can try the game.
Yeah, exactly. I got one more question here. We went to Facebook. I logged into my dad's account, because he's the only one that can get on these days.
Got him.
Check this out. Peter Desautel said, I would love to hear thoughts on whether it's somehow less healthy that we look to be headed into a control-heavy meta compared to aggro. More specifically, do people on Twitter have a point, or are they just salty aggro players who only know how to play 5-card hands? How did Brendan do at Pro Tier?
He went 7-7.
An equal record.
Yeah.
That means you are equals.
I think he started out 3-4 on day one, and then just played through.
Right on. What about Hayden and Sasha?
I think
Sasha was doing well.
I think Sasha went 8 and something.
All right.
And I don't think Hayden did good either.
It's a full evisceration. Yeah, See you later.
It was not.
Arsenal passed the torch.
I'll say the average placement of a Wolfpack member was way higher, and it had nothing to do with me.
We got him, ladies and gentlemen. We got him.
No.
Do you think it's a control heavy is a problem? I mean,
I think if 80% of the decks you play at a tournament are Oldhim or Icelander, yes.
Okay.
Just because it's so frustrating. It's not. It's just. It can be frustrating. It can be exhausting.
It's a different way to. Yeah.
Is blue the magic color that does this? They like cancel stuff and like stop you from doing what you're trying to do. Is that the color blue?
Yeah, blue. Yeah, there's a lot of cancels.
Pardon my. I'm showing my youth, I guess, or my lack of experience. I asked earlier, we were chatting, we were having coffee this morning, and asked what a season pass was for a video game. I felt really old.
Yeah.
I don't know if that actually makes me old or just inexperienced.
You're definitely at the age now. It's only falling behind from now on.
But like it's the classic. It's why I don't like. I didn't like Oldhim when he was the hyper defensive version, because he spends 90% of the game just not letting you play your game.
Yeah.
And then eventually wins, and I hate that. Like I deplore that actually.
Games a lot of time have those things rise up.
Yeah. And it was the same like Mill in Star Wars Destiny, where they never even attack you. Their whole thing is just to not take damage and run you out of deck.
Diplomacy.
Yeah. I just can't stand it, honestly. But I think that if they feel like I felt the first 10 games as Briar into Oldhim and Icelander, I understand the feeling of people, especially on Twitter. But I'm 8 weeks ahead of that curve.
Yeah.
I've been feeling that way for 8 weeks, but I also know that it can get better, and it means you have to adjust. And I actually think it's really healthy, unless we get to the point where Oldhim and Icelander are 80% of the decks.
I mean, you have the Oldhim mirrors and the Icelander mirrors, and it's just like watching paint dry.
And even Oldhim into Dromai is like, Dromai, like I was saying earlier, it's just play dragons, pass. And Oldhim's like, well, I guess I'll swing for 9 at you, or 6. And it's like, block, play dragon, pass.
Yeah.
Or they're swinging at the dragons. And it's just like...
Basically, if it turns into matchups that are... the win condition seems fundamentally outside of the whole spirit of Flesh and Blood.
Yeah. Right? But in the same way, there was the Vis meta back in Indy that was 2 aggro decks, game's over on turn 3.
Yeah. That also was bad.
Yeah.
Very bad.
I don't like that either. And I think there's enough pieces in play, honestly, where Oldhim can't just play defensive. And Icelander can't just set up for the end of the game. Like, there are matches she has to play faster because you're not going to get the chance. Like, aggro existing, they can get past Icelander, means she can't just play till I have 3 Frost Hexes and 3 Insidious Chills and 3 whatever that Amulet of Ice is.
Yeah.
And then, like, run you out of hand, give you a bunch of Frostbites, do a bunch of damage in the game.
Yeah.
That condition exists, so you have to know it's there. And that's where even Oldhim can't play defensive. Like, what do all those defensive cards do against Icelander? Nothing.
Yeah, true.
Because it's horrible, actually.
Yeah.
So I think there's hope as a Runeblade player. I also think that a lot of...
Yeah, any Runeblades left? I mean, they've almost done...
They're about to be in a different age. I'll probably just not even play anymore once they're gone. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, now you've got a Warrior Wizard you can play,
Yeah. I would love to play Bravo, but I just feel like he's a worse Oldhim.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, at this point. But all that to say, I think the meta is going to evolve. In the next... Mark me. Yeah, he's literally marking me. In the next 45 days, we're going to have 30, 40 national championships. And my prediction is that Oldhim / Icelander might be 20% of the meta.
Mm-hmm. Good.
I think that 30 to 50% are still going to be aggro.
Yeah.
And I think aggro players are going to find a way to sideboard. It's going to be different. It's not slap 5 cards down and do more damage than your opponent and, like, hope you draw your heroics before they do. Right?
Yeah.
But I think you have to play very differently, very intentionally, and there's ways around it. And I think the meta will evolve over that course of time. And then we're obviously going to be going into the World Championship season, which will be fun to see. But, I think there's... The takes on these kind of topics can be very extreme.
You did say Twitter,
yeah. And that part of it is like that's YouTube videos, that's the tweets that get likes and reactions and comments. Is like if someone says, the Oldhim match into Icelander is unwinnable, like that's a better tweet than like I think with like some time and figuring it out you can get around it. Like it's a reasonable thing. So I think they're quick, especially if they've just been playing aggro and like it's a different skill set to play mid range or long term fab. Like pitching to a second cycle is unheard of.
That's like what Mr. Whopper Jones is saying. Second cycle Briar with Crown of Seeds, question mark.
I'll tell you this. Crown of Seeds was in my Pro Tour 2 list.
Boom.
For very specific matchups.
You
for
were
very
there
specific
already.
reasons, yeah.
Also, you should know Mansant went 7-7 on the Via as well. So you're in good company.
Yeah, right. Mansant was not across from me, but 1 over. I was really sad. I would kind of like to have played against him.
Was he dressed as Levia?
Day 2 he was. He did really well in the cosplay competition.
Nice.
Yeah.
Great.
It was really cool.
Are they still giving out those Taylor cards?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Those are sweet. Also.
I love it. But yeah, no, I'm not concerned yet about the meta. I will be concerned if it's like 80%.
I think they do something though at this point.
I think they do something post-Nationals, pre-Worlds.
Yeah.
But that doesn't change what's going to happen at Nationals.
Well, and that's the thing. Even so, like, it still finds a way to be interesting, it seems like. Even when I feel like it's on the verge of not being interesting, the finals match is always something crazy and these high-skill things are happening. And
I think the reality is Oldhim might be the best deck right now. But there are decks that beat Oldhim. And there are decks that are fair into Oldhim. And if Oldhim is the best deck, those other decks will get played.
Yeah.
And if those other decks are getting played, what is good is not just what's good into Oldhim. It's what's good into Oldhim. And it's like a whole circle.
It continues forever.
Yeah.
Back and forth, man.
So I'm not worried.
Last question here from Bentley Hunter on Facebook. I'd like to hear more of your thoughts on mixed formats in a single tournament. So, like you said, draft was kind of the downfall of this tournament for you. Do you back that being the tournament format, or would you prefer a pure draft or sealed or constructed rather than a combined or blitz? Blitz.
Well, that's a whole.
I'm just kidding. Blitz is great. We love blitz.
I think that mixed format is fantastic.
Okay.
I think I would rather the draft. I think draft / mixed formats is really good. Short answer. But Uprising draft is not my favorite format.
Okay.
For a lot of reasons. Like, I think other people have talked this to death, but you have, because of the talents and the classes, I think it is a format that penalizes you for staying open.
Mm-hmm.
And does not really allow you to pivot past pick 5, 6, or 7. And so a lot of times you kind of pick and then you just hope.
Yeah.
You hope that the two people to your right don't pivot to Icelander if you picked Icelander.
Yeah.
Or like someone across the table extra doesn't pivot at the wrong time. And then on top of that, I think the gameplay, it's easy to blame the format. And I see a lot of people doing that. I think from a draft perspective, even like the thing you said, in hindsight, taking all the 6s is actually a problem.
Could be. Sometimes it's great though.
Yeah, if you happen to see the Dromize,
mm-hmm.
great. Or if you are the Dromai,
mm-hmm.
also great. But I do think I helped players to my left lose to Dromai.
Yeah.
And I lost my first round. So then I was playing the people that lost to Dromai, not Dromai, as an
mm-hmm.
example. But yeah, there's definitely, in hindsight, I think there's things I could have done better,
mm-hmm.
both in gameplay and in drafting. But as compared to Welcome to Wraith or even Monarch drafting, looking back at it and or experiencing it since then, if you're going to have draft as a part of a Pro Tour level event, I think you want that format to slap.
Yeah, see, but let me wax for just a second on this, because this is something that that's been on my mind. Hearing your story just kind of seals it. In the comparison to Magic in terms of cooperative play or commander variant style formats, there are these paradigms that have been set up for TCGs from Magic, clearly. And Flesh and Blood is very much following in the spirit of those days of clean booster draft, sealed, big pro tours, big tournaments, following in the footsteps of basically what James thinks Magic did well and maybe has lost sight of. Paper play, if you will, in-person play. But it might be time to start asking the question, what does Flesh and Blood's ideal limited format look like? Because it may well not be the same draft that Magic started doing when you have 5 colors, when you can splash, mm-hmm. when you have multiple lands that you can pick up, like when we played Spoils. Draft is a lot easier and the pivoting is a lot easier because there aren't those silos in place.
Mm-hmm.
You could run 4 colors if you wanted to take the land risk to do that. Because you can't do that in Fab, it makes sense that it would be way more difficult to have any kind of a meaningful draft format or sealed format because you're already splitting everything up before the packs are even
mm-hmm.
open. So is it the case where your sealed format is 12 packs or your draft format is take 3 cards instead of 1? Or, let's start thinking outside the box because this is an out-of-the-box system. This is not the same draft system that started the whole frenzy for TCG is a different vibe for sure.
Yeah, and two big things with Fabs / Uprising specifically too are this is a set with very low generic counts. So that's why I like Welcome to Wraith so much. Is that generic good cards are generic, and some of the generics are particularly good with certain heroes.
Yeah,
and so like you should know what those things are. And then even with Monarch, you had generics and you also had talents split two ways. So there are two talents here, but there's only one ice hero as an example. And so it's kind of just awkward. Like there's not a lot of space to pivot or be wrong about what deck to be on.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, you I lost what the other thing was.
It's gone, man. It's there with the baguette.
Yeah.
You're over there. You're daydreaming. Must not have had my oats. I see a little thought bubble, and you're in a beret, and you're over there with your striped shirt, and you're eating a baguette, and you're saying, carbs are wonderful. Everything is great.
But the other thing, there it is, Uprising specifically. There's only 14 draftable cards, which doesn't feel like a lot. But when it comes to pivot slots, that's 3 less cards you get to draft. And 3 less cards out of 45 is like 1/15 of your total draft pool that you don't get. I mean, if you're Fi, you get Phoenix Flames, technically, and Dromai can technically play those cards too. But I think that was also a big deal. But yeah, it definitely feels like you're trapped at a certain point and you can't pivot.
And that's by nature, that makes for an awesome constructed, like we were talking about earlier, it feels like a sustainable constructed deck building system, deck construction system. They have a lot of levers. They can control things a lot better than wide open deck building. But it does not make your limited format better or easier.
Well, and I think, Tails was a really good example of where that worked. Because every hero had 2 talents.
It did help, yeah.
So there are class cards and talent cards and generic, like there weren't generics, but like that felt better. And honestly, I think that format maybe would have been my favorite draft sealed format post Briar Errata.
Yeah.
Like
definitely.
Yeah. Honestly. That's less of a format issue and more just a balancing issue.
But you also got to ask the question, how much do you want the limited format to wag the dog or the tail or whatever of the constructed cards that you want in the set for a good, healthy meta?
Yeah.
Because you can't just guarantee that this is going to be a beautiful tri-split every time.
And that's probably why they're wanting to do the supplemental every other set, right? It's a lot to balance. And I know in that interview at Pro Tour 1, James is talking about potentially doing 4 sets a year with every other set being supplemental. So you have to wait less time to get to a new draft set.
Yeah.
And that is tough to have an incredible draft format that works as a standalone set that also advances your constructed in a way that you want it to do it.
At least draft as it is now.
Yeah.
Or sealed as it is now. And that's where I think you could have the sweet spot of 3 sets a year with them all being limited ready, depending on how you decide to do that format.
Yeah. Like, I wouldn't be against, if you want to get a little wacky, you design your sets a little different, but even in Uprising, if it had been 4 packs instead of 3, and then 6 players at the table instead of 8, like, or a bigger booster box or whatever it means, or a bigger booster pack, I think there's ways to do it, but it's a very restricting format. I have fun playing it, don't get me wrong. I think skill is hugely important. But at the same time, compared to the other limited set, like Welcome to Wraith, it's just I played that team. We drafted, and every other seat was the other team. And that limited format kind of opened my eyes. It was like, oh,
yeah,
this is different.
Now this is drafting.
This is different.
But you also, when you go into the constructed mindset of that, do you say, do I want my constructed meta to be 50% generic cards or 80% generic cards?
You don't.
Because eventually that's what happens, right?
Yeah.
It's amazing. I mean, I just think it's impressive to now have seen the realization of the constructed side of this, and they've got the organized play established. They've got 2 Pro Tours under their belt. That is firing. You're already talking about nationals. You're already talking about worlds. It's like, it's off to the races. This is forever.
And this is the first year doing the full thing. And my assumption will be that next year will look a lot like this year. It'll be a lot easier for them to do. It's a lot easier to market, promote, when people have an expectation of how this is going to function.
Yeah.
And they can make iterations and improvements, right?
Yeah.
And they do. They're constantly they're doing that. So it's really impressive to see. I'm very optimistic about their ability to sustain and then turn that sustained effort into growth over time. But it is definitely like in terms of mixed formats, I will say on the prep side, it made it more of a challenge, and that was good. And even now, I think having another format to be preparing for Worlds is actually really healthy because the draft format's not changing. The constructed format is changing, but not significantly. And so if it wasn't, I think that Worlds would be a lot less exciting. That said, I would way rather it have been commoner than Blitz.
Right on. Fair critique.
Yeah.
Man, anything else you got to say about Lille? I think we've caught up on everything. You guys have any questions?
I will say a couple shout-outs. One, Legend Story continues to run great events. It was a phenomenal time getting to play players from 15 different countries.
Did they contract this out? Was this a Channel Fireball or a Star City?
It's called the Tournament Center. TC for short. They were in the event. I thought it was well run. I would love if the event started at 10 a.m. next time you host it in France.
Yeah.
And then tons of people were coming out. It was really cool. I haven't played an international tournament ever.
Yeah,
my first
that's a big deal.
But the number of people that came up and said something, said hello, took pictures, it was just the kind words. Huge shout out to everyone there. All my opponents were great. Of course, the Wolfpack. Congratulations on doing well. I was happy to get to be a part of success, even though I was only doing okay. And just huge shout out to everyone in the Discord channel, on Twitter, and the community. It's just great. All the support and interactions and stuff were really awesome.
Yeah,
it's
cool.
just super humbling to be a part of all this.
Glad you got to go to that. That's awesome. Fudgenator said thanks for the stream. Well, thanks for joining us, Fudgenator. Thomas saying the same. Just for you, what's on tomorrow? We're doing Ashes tomorrow. I'm going to look at the Adventuring Party decks. We're going to get Tristan and the other one. I don't know the other one because I only care about Tristan on the table. Those would be super fun. Tournament Center, said Jotrick, they run every big event in Europe. So they're kind of the entity that does that there. And then, did you know it was James signing at PT2? So David's asking. No idea. Yeah. Question for Zach: are you still going to rep Briar with all the Oldhim showing up to Nats?
I don't know.
Okay.
I'm still trying to figure that out.
Or are you going to be one of the Oldhims?
So
you can't. You will not be playing Oldhim.
I won't be playing.
I can guarantee everybody.
I will be playing a deck that I think can beat Oldhim.
Yeah. And then, what do you think of Arsenal Pass's pick of you? What is that?
Have you seen it?
Is that the crown of the Dominion thing? Oh no, the staring into the distance. Yeah. Oh yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah, I thought it was hilarious. Honestly, I wasn't using my cell service. So I didn't see that until I got back to the hotel.
That's great.
And it was like tons of people on Twitter were liking it. But Brendan took a picture of me. I was waiting on my wife to get to the restaurant we were at. I told her the restaurant.
That's a common thing for you, isn't it?
But we aren't using our cell phones.
Right.
So she was walking to meet us there. And she's directionally not the best.
Yeah.
Self-admittedly. So there's like a entrance to like a subway station. And I was just like doing this, like this, while I was waiting. And so the tournament's over. It was on Saturday night. And like, just the weather was nice sitting there. And I'm thinking nothing of it. And so then we go to dinner that night. I get to the hotel, check my thing. And it's just like the most hilarious picture of me just like, I think he said, I don't remember what the tweet said. It was very funny.
It was like sad and thoughtful.
Like should have played Oldhim or something like that.
Should have played, yeah.
Something like that.
Last thing, did you have any great like nights out, or was there any like bars or clubs? Did you go dancing? Did you get some of that French house music?
We found, so like there's the city center in Lille, which is this like statue in the middle and all the stuff around. It's like classic.
Don't you love that classic orientation of a city based around people being there instead of cars and stuff?
Yeah.
It's so nice.
Which that was cool. A little touristy, but that was cool. But we went north of that. And if you go north like probably almost a mile, you run into this like long alley of like all these like pubs and wine places and
it's
restaurants. It's
getting more Belgian up there.
Just like cool area. I don't know where we went, but we found this wine bar and they had French wine. And we just hung out there and had wine. That was like the craziest it got.
Beautiful. Just drinking wine? Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was Saturday night.
That's why you don't know what a Game Pass is.
Game Pass?
Yeah, from Aaron.
Oh, yeah. Just a Saturday night.
You say you're feeling old, man. Yeah, you go into the wine bar, getting home at 10 p.m. That's pretty...
Yeah. I got home like midnight, to be fair.
You're sitting there like trying to stay awake. Guys,
had to be up at 7:30 to go get my croissant. But no, nothing too crazy. It was really nice. Ran into people. Of course, it's not a huge town, so you run into people in the town square. that play Fab, and so I had a lot of great conversations. I remember meeting Freddie particularly and his wife, and they were from, I think they were from Belgium.
Okay. I believe it.
And they were the ones that actually told me about that area.
Love it.
Which is really cool. And that was the like Thursday night. We had gone to get dinner, and then we're going back, and I had to play the Pro Tour the next morning. But like it was really funny because I was like, "Oh, you have any recommendations?" They've been hanging around, and he recommended that area. And then I was like, "Okay, great." And he's like, "You want to go?" Like he was ready to go back and like have a good time. I was like,
"That's awesome.
I would love to, but I'm gonna go sleep."
Yeah.
Because like I'm exhausted, and like we got a tournament tomorrow and stuff. But yeah, everyone was super friendly. The French people were really nice, even though I'm American.
Dexstar2K in the chat. I was very happy to get to know you briefly. You went to the bar that I recommended you. I hope you had a nice time. Best regards, Freddie.
There in the chat. That's awesome. Where are you from?
Cheers, Freddie. That's amazing.
Sounds like a
good recommendation. That is so cool. I love it when this kind of stuff happens.
I see Jotrick too. It was nice to meet you as well.
Yeah.
And I also want to give a shout out to White Rabbit. They're a game store. A couple of them came up and gave me this playmat from the national championship, which is really cool.
Whoa, what is
nice,
that?
Like, note here. They just got this made for their national championship.
Just a scene? Was that a famous painting or something? What is that?
I think it's
Sir John Gilbert, 1817-1897, morning of the Battle of Agincourt, 1884. That's got to be really famous art, right?
So it's White Rabbit in
Cologne. Freddie from Cologne. I've been to Cologne. It's awesome. We need to go there next.
Where's that at?
Germany.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So I was close-ish.
Yeah, Western Europe.
They were also from Germany.
Yeah.
And this was really nice of him for them to bring up. And I checked out their store, had a long chat with him. And they were just saying that like they had followed us for a long time and were really inspired by our story to start their own store and stuff, which is really super awesome.
Nailed it.
So if you're in Germany, check out White Rabbit. They're great people. And like you could just tell they're very passionate about what they're doing and they care a lot. So I don't know. It was really refreshing to get to interact with people from all over the world. It was tough because like a lot of them English is definitely not their first language.
Yeah.
It's a ton of different languages happening.
Yeah.
Playing as people like that was really cool. Because like you all know the cards and what they do and how it's functioning.
Mm-hmm.
That was awesome. But then some of the conversation was just tough.
It is, yeah.
I want to talk more, but it's just...
talk deeper. Mm-hmm. Like how do you... Yeah, it's cool. Sometimes that's fun though, you got to make do with what you got. Well, thanks everybody for watching. Hey, we'll see you next week, I'm sure, with more flesh and blood content.
Yeah, what are we doing next week?
What are we doing next week?
I start playing some Blitz. I have a sudden urge or need. So I swear I want to be doing this. Don't you? You want to see if we can have fun playing Blitz? We'll leave that to the Bryce.
See, this goes back to the casual competitive comment. Can you have fun playing Blitz? It's like, well, I'm not going to intentionally play something that's good. That's not good. Although I do that often. But it's with the intention of making it good. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not just like, well, I'm just going to put bad cards in here because that's fun, right? I'm casual. It's not how that works, right? So I don't know. I mean, I guess it would be fun in the same way that it was fun. If it was me, you, and Matt, we get Matt Coles on the stream, and we could just have one person taunting the whole time. That would be fun.
Yeah, that would be a certain kind of enjoyable. Hey, I will say, Oldham can't play Crown of Seeds, so Blitz is on the table.
Oh, that is way better. All right, guys. Take care. We'll see you next time. Appreciate you being here.